Thanks all for being here tonight. We'll start the meeting. Madam City Clerk. Oh, sorry. Forgot to ask everyone but the City Clerk if we were ready.
I just want to ask him to send out the
You'll print them for me?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. For roll call, Mayor Kelly Krebs.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Robert Parkhurst.
Here.
Councilmember Edward Garcia.
Present.
Councilmember Jean Goss.
Here.
And Councilmember Christine Lowe.
Present.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum this evening.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Garcia, would you like to lead us in the pledge and inspiration?
Please rise if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So if you know me, I get a little rah-rah about the country around Independence Day and around election days. Many of you know that I'm half Cuban. My father came from Cuba during a time of turmoil, and Cuba's ruled a different way that we are. So I'd like to read a little bit. It's not history class, but I'd just like to read you a little bit from the Declaration of Independence, a little bit that leads to our Constitution. Again, July 4th, 1776, these words were written probably a few days before that, but signed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute a new government. So I reflect back on what the founding fathers did and what they were doing, and on the parade route, I always make sure at least 75% of the time I don't say Happy 4th, I say Happy Independence Day, because it was a big deal for our country then, and it should be a big deal for our country now, over 200 years later. And as you know, following that, we came up with the Constitution, and I always like to reflect on this, especially when we're talking about elections and we're in an election cycle. And I always think we can never rehear that preamble of the U.S. Constitution enough. And it starts out with three words that I always highlight: we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain to establish the Constitution for the United States of America. Right off the bat, in Article 1 of the Constitution, our founding fathers set up the Congress. That sets up the supremacy of the people through our elected representatives. And it's no coincidence that the creation of broad representation of the people was the first article of this vital document. So just as we reflect on our 4th of July, I hope we had a good time. It wasn't too hot. It was warm, but not too hot. Spent some time with our families. But I hope that every year that we all kind of reflect on the blessings that we have to be in such a wonderful country. We do have our flaws, which are self-evident, but pun intended. But I just hope that we do reflect on how great this nation is and how great it can continue to be. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. We will move on to approval of the meeting agenda. Anybody have any changes or motion to approve? Second. All those in favor?
Madam Mayor, we do
Oh.
have one recommended change.
Oh, okay, thank you.
There's one item on consent. I believe it's item E.
E.
We would like to move that item to the second item of discussion.
Oh, okay.
Move to approve as amended.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Approval for reading of resolution and ordinance by title only.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. All right, and moving on to council reports. Who would like to start?
I could start.
Sure,
Of course,
thank you.
it's not that many activities, but a lot in 2 days, of course. We did the 3rd of July celebrations in the park, which were run extremely well with the whole community involved and lots of collaboration. For sure got the Rotary Club's tri-tip sandwich. And the Sierra Madre Events Committee sure did a fantastic job of putting everything together for that and the parade. And then, of course, the parade was fantastic. It was, you're right, it was warm, but it wasn't it was standable. And it was really fun to see everybody out in the crowds and celebrate. And then Planning Commission, of course, was not held on July 4th, but we did get the opportunity to look at one of their previous agenda items was pre-approved ADU plans, and so I was able to go look at previous Planning Commissioner Bob Spears' ADU that he just built in his backyard, and it was pretty fantastic. It's a nice little setup. It's like a grandma unit in the back. And I had to do that. I did that on Montecito Avenue, so that was great.
Great.
Sure. Yes, attended the events on July 3rd in the park. It was great to see so many out there. I want to echo what Councilmember Lowe said, that the Sierra Madre Events Committee, kind of in their inaugural event as with the new name, did a fantastic job, and I think the YMCA did a great job of working with the city and the community in that capacity. Again, the parade was great. It was great to see so many lining the streets. I know in previous years there was pockets of emptiness. It seems like the city is excited about our parade once again, so it was a great parade. As far as the Senior Community Commission, their meeting was was regularly scheduled for the 4th as well, so it has been postponed to next Monday, the 11th, and that's my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Goss?
Real quick, I did not go to the beer garden.
Didn't
I
see you
did
there.
not get in the parade for the first time in 10 years because I had COVID. Yay. I really missed it, and I heard it was I'm sure it was great, so I'm glad to be healthy. I've been back in the gym 4 days in a row since I tested negative, so it's all good. But just a word to the wise, COVID's out there. I know a lot of people that got it, so just keep an eye out for it.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
All right, yeah, so there was a couple of things. Wouldn't be between meetings without a Clean Power Alliance meeting. There was one of the Energy Committee, but nothing to report there. At the same day, this was June 26th, there was a sanitation district meeting, which I was representing the city in the place of the mayor. And we approved a new labor contract for our sanitation workers. So those that are working on our wastewater treatment plant, adopted that, and then celebrated the retirement of 2 workers that had been there there was one gentleman who worked in the laboratory, and then one worked at the treatment plant, and they'd been there for 20 plus years each. So it was a really nice event, or nice meeting, and nice that we could make sure that our sanitation workers get a good contract, and the negotiations with the union there had gone very well. So nothing more to report.
Great, thank you. I will not reiterate the descriptions of our great 4th events, but I would like to hand out some thank yous to Mayor Pro Tem Parkhurst for covering the last meeting for me, as well as the sanitation meeting that he mentioned. Obviously, the Sierra Madre Events Committee, the YMCA, city staff, especially community services, for just a bevy of events just stacked on top of each other. It was an amazing weekend and week in Sierra Madre. I'd also like to thank the Mountain Views News, who does this, I think, every 4th of July. They print a separate section to the inspiration point that Councilmember Garcia mentioned earlier. They print the entirety of the Declaration of Independence and Constitution. So I want to put a big shout out for that, because that's extra expense for them that doesn't get recouped, and so I appreciate the commitment to that. I'd also like to thank GoSGV because this week I became the first staff person to pick up our loaned e-bikes. So you may have seen me zipping around town on an e-bike. I've been trying to use it for trips into town, although I have an electric car, so you know it's more of a convenience and PR effort. But it is super fun, and I definitely recommend the e-bikes. And I know others, other electeds, commissioners, and staff will also be participating with those e-bikes. So pay attention to folks around town. It has a big Go SGV logo on the side, so you'll see those around town. And then in terms of announcements, this is both a annual as well as a always celebrated announcement, but for the 7th consecutive year, our finance department has been recognized for excellence in financial reporting by the Government Finance Officers Association. So while it seems routine, because we get it every year, we don't want to diminish the fact that this is an amazing achievement, and even more so by the fact that it's the 7th consecutive year. This achievement would not have been possible without the extraordinary efforts of our finance team and their dedication and expertise, and really just hard work on all the things finance. Usually from a short-staffed perspective, just really commendable, and so I think we should just give them a round of applause. The library continues to have so much programming, even from their new location. They have everything from summer reading programs to puppet shows, arts and crafts, and more. There are flyers in the back of the room to sign up and see all of the different activities that they're doing this summer. Similarly, at the Hart Park House, we have our YWCA lunch program back up and running. The meals are served Monday through Thursday at 11:30. Meals are suggested donation of $3 for seniors 60 and over and $5 for non-seniors. And there are no reservations required, and participants are encouraged to arrive by 11:15 for a meal. And I believe on Thursday they also provide a frozen meal to cover Friday and over the weekend. So definitely participate in that. That's a great program put on by our senior commission. On July 14th, Memorial Park Concert in the Park will be the Tokens, which you may know from the famous recorded Lion Sleeps Tonight song. They will be performing from 6 to 8 p.m. on the 14th, so bring your blanket or put your lawn chair out at 6 a.m. in the morning and enjoy. And another big announcement this week from our library is that we are now up and running with public Wi-Fi at the temporary library. So you'll be able to access all of the tools and resources that the library provides, as well as just in general the Wi-Fi. So it's just another really big lift by our staff, especially the IT department, to provide the community with the facilities and services that support learning, connectivity, and engagement with our world. So lots of things happening even with the holidays. So appreciate everybody and their efforts. So I think we're moving on to public comment on items not on the agenda, and I will forego tonight reading the code of conduct. I think you all know. So if we have any comment not for items not on the agenda.
Madam Mayor, we have one speaker card from Todd Conrad.
Great, thank you.
Evening. I don't normally, Christine, you know me, I don't normally come down and make public comment, but today we had an event in town. Much like many other events in town we've had, the bear broke in through a locked window. And a child was at home. Little background on me, by the way, 561 Foothill Avenue uptown. I moved into town in 1980 with anticipation of joining the volunteer fire department, and I did in 1981. And there were no bears. There literally were no bears in town. In 1999 or 2000, I don't recall, but on the corner of Mountain Trail in Grandview, we had a bear up in a tree, and everybody freaked out. And as I see it, rightfully so, but nonetheless, it settled, bear went away, but it's gotten increasingly increasingly worse.
Oh, thank you.
It's fine. And even, even with the lull that we had about a year ago after shipping off one, it's come back threefold. And all I can say is, it's time. We're overdue. And it's not like I expect you guys to go out with a shotgun and be, you know, hunting. But at the same time, we need to progress fish and game and or forestry or whatever the resources are, whether we relocate a number of bears and or dispatch them accordingly, safely, humanely. But when someone can't be at home during the day with the doors closed and the windows locked and know that they're safe, that is wrong. I don't want to beat it up, so thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, we have no other speaker cards, nor did we receive any emails.
Thank you. All right, so moving on to presentations. Are we going to start with from Jeanette from SoCal Edison?
Good evening, Madame Mayor and City Council members and residents of Sierra Madre. Thank you for having me here today. I'm Jeanette Soriano, Government Relations Manager with Southern California Edison. I'm happy to be here today with my colleague, my colleague James Peterson, who will be discussing the update on the fixed charge decision made by the CPUC recently. And then after he speaks, I'll be briefly going over the 2024 reliability report for Sierra Madre. And I just, before we start, just wanted to commend City Manager Reynoso and the Sierra Madre staff for the constructive partnership we've built over the years. You know, when issues come up, we are able to work together to see them through to resolution. And we're currently, you know, making presentations on the REACH codes that your city is considering, so we're very happy to partner on that. So that being said, I will turn it over to my colleague James.
And I will thank you for your continued communication with us and continued availability as a resource as things come up. So I appreciate the other half of the partnership that you
Absolutely.
referenced.
Thank you. And James, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm James Peterson. I'm a Senior Policy Advisor with Southern California Edison's Local Public Affairs Department, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about the recently approved CPUC decision on the fixed charge. It received a lot of attention over the last year and a half, and so there was a lot of confusion and misinformation, so it's really great that we have the opportunity to kind of clear the air and explain what it is and what it isn't. So first off, and just really defining what a fixed charge is it's a fairly common tool used by utilities, by telephone, by water, by all kinds of various utilities to separate the cost for infrastructure and programs from your usage rates. And this tool is used across the country. It's just we're a little bit behind here in California adopting it for our rates and specifically for the investor-owned utilities. So where we got started with this was that there was a state law that was passed in 2022, AB 205, which required the Public Utilities Commission to adopt a fixed charge, and it had certain requirements. It had to have the lowest income customers pay less than what they're paying currently. It also had to be adopted by July 1st of this past year, and a number of other requirements. But and also one of the key requirements is there had to be multiple tiers. There was a long debate over how exactly to do that and how you could do it without looking at customers' incomes. Thankfully, there were some existing programs that allowed for the adoption of a fixed charge using existing programs, our low income programs, which you might be familiar with, which are called CARE and FARA. And so the categories that we were able to approve with the approval of the administrative law judge in this case was to use those tiers which people can apply for and qualify for those lower income benefits for discounted rates. That was one way that we were able to move forward and have this adopted in a fairly uncomplicated way. It's something that the staff at the CPUC was strongly in favor of. We had roughly 10 different parties that were weighing in on the proceeding. So we had ratepayer advocate organizations, we had environmental groups, solar, the utilities, we had CCAs that were weighing in and talking about what their recommendation was. And the recommended amounts were very low from some organizations and much higher from others. What makes the difference between the fixed charge from the proposals was the higher the fixed charge is, the greater reduction you get in terms of the price per kilowatt hour. So while there might have been some parties that recommended a higher rate, you would see your electric rates drop significantly with that higher set number appearing on your bill each month. We spent about 1.5 to 2 years debating this, and it was on May 19th that the PUC approved a set charge for this. And as I mentioned, there is a difference between California and the other utilities around the country. You can see in white, those are the areas that are covered by Southern California Edison, PG&E, and San Diego Gas and Electric. The white represents those places where there is not a significant fixed charge or no fixed charge. Edison has a fixed charge today before the CPU proceeding, but it's less than $1. It doesn't really significantly address the cost for the poles, the wires, the services, and so this proceeding was meant to try and resolve that issue. Now, as I mentioned, the fixed charge is not new and it's fairly common, and you can see in other parts of the country exactly how common it is. So what you see here, and I'll just focus on the graph, is those are the utilities, the public-owned utilities. And right in the center is the Sacramento Municipal Utilities District, SMUD. So SMUD has had a fixed charge for over 10 years, and their fixed charge is just above $24 a month. Other utilities are high up into the 30s, others down in the teens. So what the Public Utilities Commission did is they used the SMUD model and adopted it for all the 3 California utilities. That 10+ years of history has kind of shown the CPUC how this could work, and this is sort of a safe landing zone. It wasn't as high as some parties, like Edison had proposed a higher amount for a fixed charge, and it wasn't as low as some of the solar parties were suggesting. So the billing structure is really meant to promote electrification, address the affordability concerns of low-income customers. Also, it would address transparency so that people would be able to predict better what their bill would be like from month to month. And you see here some examples of how it would be applied, and this is going to be statewide. I should note it applies to all customers that are served by the investor-owned utilities. And so CCAs, customers that receive their power from Edison through the CCAs, they'll also be a part of this program, and it applies to all customers equally. You have the 3 different tiers that were approved, and it does separate those fixed costs from those variable costs, which is your usage costs that you see here. So other key elements is, as I mentioned, there's no income verification required. I know that was a concern early on for a lot of customers and a lot of stakeholders in the proceeding. All customers are included. There is very significantly no increase in the revenues or profits from utilities. We receive exactly the same number of dollars as we received before the fixed charge. It's just that they're applied in slightly different ways to the customer base. And one of the claims that was made by opponents of the fixed charge is that this is a utility tax. It absolutely is not a utility tax. Southern California Edison does not tax customers. We don't really have that authority. We see that there are utility taxes that are levied by local governments, and there's a remittance that comes back to the city. And I know that there is one here, I believe 8% in Sierra Madre, and that results in about $700,000 a year being returned to the city, so we can decide how to use those dollars to provide services. I'm going to pass through this and get to really what is probably most important to you, is what is the impact on customers, and specifically customers in Sierra Madre. So as I mentioned, there's 3 different tiers, and they're based off those existing care and FARA programs. And then you see at the bottom the non-care, the sort of typical customer that doesn't have a discounted program. In Sierra Madre, you have about 10% of your customers that fall into the low income categories, so they would see a $6 fixed charge or a $12 fixed charge. But then as you see in the third column, there's going to be a 5 to 7 cent rate reduction for all customers regardless of income level. And that final column shows you what the expected impact would be. The impacts are slightly different based off of the climate in different parts of our service territory. This being a slightly warmer climate here, there's a multiplier, and so the areas that use more electricity because they're warmer, they actually get more of a benefit. So the average impact to a customer bill based off of a 500 megawatt use by that residential customers, and this only applies to residential, would be about $4.39 savings on their bills. And then in that FARA category, it would be almost $7. But for the typical customer, which is about 90% of Sierra Madre's customer base, you would see a 43-cent increase in their bills. So that amount probably is not going to be very noticeable to most customers. And as you know, we have rate changes that appear multiple times a year, sometimes slightly higher, sometimes slightly lower. Typically, those changes are in the multiple dollars. It might be $2, $3 increase or decrease in your bill. So this is significantly less than even those rate changes. So that's the impact for local customers. This is much lower amount than what was originally conceived of in the fixed charge, but it was a fairly safe place for the Public Utilities Commission to land, and will have a really de minimis impact on the typical customer's bill in your city. So I'll leave it there and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I'll open it up for questions. Anybody have questions?
So this was part of the, you said AB, the 2022 budget trailer bill, right?
Right.
And that was kind of, it was passed kind of, this was kind of a tack on kind of at the end of the process, wasn't it?
Right. So typical trailer bills, they'll come from the governor's office, and it has a wide range of proposals on any number of things. This was one of the provisions that came back in that trailer bill.
And there was a bill that was introduced this February, AB 1999, that was going to repeal a lot of that, right? And I understand that's
right.
That's now dead. Is that right?
It is.
Okay. The way this was passed, it passed as a trailer bill. Is that something that you feel was a good policy or a good approach in doing it?
Well, I should say that Edison has felt for a long time that a fixed charge would be helpful because it would create some more transparency, some more affordability for low-income customers. We didn't take a position. We did not advocate for this fixed charge. And typically a trailer bill, you only have a couple of days to even see the legislation and provide comment on it. There was no additional hearing that took place where we could provide testimony. This was handed to the utilities to figure out how are you going to do this and make the best of it. We feel like this is a reasonable place to land. We do see some benefits. We particularly like the electrification incentives that will be inspired by this. But trailer bills are a tricky thing, and there's some strong opinions about whether they work or they don't work. But we're doing our best to implement the direction from the CPUC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't have any control over that, and I recognize that. This is an income graduated fixed charge, right? Not just a regular fixed charge, it's an income graduated fixed charge, right?
Right.
And then you had the slide up there about the different income levels, but you don't know my income level. You don't know, like, if you're a care or FARA, how do you know if you're a care or FARA customer? How do you get care or FARA customers?
So just as it exists today, and I should mention really quickly, this is going to be implemented over the next year and a half. It doesn't really kick in on customer bills until about December of 2025. Today, customers can apply to participate in the Care and Fair programs and get that discount in a number of ways. They submit an application if there are already participants in certain state programs that are income qualified, food stamps and that sort of thing, then that is sort of a proxy for them to be eligible for this program. It's also a self-attestation program, and this is true of most Care and Fair programs. You fill out the application, you submit it. What utilities do is we take a random sampling and test. We actually verify a sample of that customer base every year.
So the low and very low customers, there's documentation, there's stuff that they can provide on that, but there's other categories beyond that, right? There's other income categories. What are some of the, is it just Care and Fair and then everybody else, or is there other graduated levels in between?
It's the former. And so this is one of the things that was really difficult when the proceeding first got started, is how do you do that? And do you only have 3 categories? That was what was required by the legislation, but you could have a more precise process where you have 10 different categories of income levels. That would have required us to find out more about people's income levels. It was enormously complicated. The staff at the CPUC came back and said, let's keep it simple. Let's use the existing programs, since we don't really want to get into the business of verifying anybody's incomes, and Edison certainly didn't want to do that either. This was a nice default that we could all use.
Got it. Okay. And so if you're going through electrification, which we want to encourage everybody to do, and we appreciate your support on investigation of our REACH program, how does this impact people that are looking to electrify?
So as you see the benefit from the reduction in the per kilowatt hour charge, that's going to incentivize customers to try and put more of their energy expenditures into electrification. So we see more customers moving from gas, from non-electric cars to electric cars, because you get a significant savings. And we've done projections that you could see thousands of dollars from your total expenditure on energy cost overall, the more you electrify. If you electrify cars and gas and refrigerator and all the various options in your house, you will get thousands of dollars of savings. It's going to take a long time for that to get implemented, but that's where you get the value.
Yeah, so the more you electrify, the better off it is. What about for solar customers? How does this impact solar customers?
So solar customers are subject to the fixed charge as well.
Right.
That was part of the contentiousness in the proceeding. But the reality is that solar customers use the grid as much as non-solar customers, because they both they export energy, and that relies upon the grid. And so to get the benefit where they were compensated for that export, they're using the grid, so everybody should pay their fair share of the cost of maintaining that grid.
So the way you're framing it, it sounds like it's a net increase for solar customers then.
It is a small increase, but you still do get an enormous benefit from having solar on your home. Where the change is that the payoff period for installing solar on your roof is slightly longer than it otherwise would have been.
So yet again, after NEM 3.0, it extended that, and this extends it again. So there's that impact as well that this has. And
there is.
None of this is meant to criticize you. I'm trying to make sure we understand the full impact of that. That there's a mixed benefit, right? If you're electrifying it, great, that's really good. If you're solar, it's another unfortunate increase in cost on it, and that's what happened as the sausage was made coming out of the CPUC.
Right. One important thing to know, though, is that benefit that accrues to solar customers is actually paid for all those people that don't have solar. There's roughly $6 billion a year that non-solar customers are paying to subsidize the solar incentives to those that have installed solar on the roofs, which can be, it varies from utility to utility, but 15 to 18% of non-solar customer bills goes to paying for the subsidies that go to solar customers. So this creates some more equity.
Got it. Thank you very much. I appreciate the update and the presentation.
Anybody else have questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Great presentation. The history and what you went through and how it's going to benefit certain residents. If you can summarize for our residents what it means, because this isn't a knock on the Clean Power Alliance, but once we went to the Clean Power Alliance, our bills got a lot more complicated and a lot more pages and, you know, what's going on. We're getting billed for our transmission and we're getting billed for the utility separately, kind of, right?
Right.
So as far as what you're talking about here today, that's for the transmission. So there's still a per kilowatt hour charge on the transmission and a flat charge. It's that per kilowatt hour charge has nothing to do with the amount or actual energy purchase. Is that correct?
Generation, right.
So could you just quickly summarize for our residents kind of like how it affects their bill?
Right. So the fixed charges are exclusively, number one, for residential customers, and they pay for the distribution and transmission infrastructure, as well as our customer service programs, state mandates, things like that. Now, it doesn't pay for all of those costs. It pays for a percentage, and that's why there were proposals that they suggested higher levels that would have covered more of it. But your usage is still going to be a critical way you can reduce your bill. And that the generation costs really are the choice of the CCA of where you source that power, and it's really, you know, we just pass through that cost. We don't have any additional income that we receive from that. It's really based on what the CCAs are doing.
So this has no impact on the Clean Power Alliance portion of our bill. This is just a different way of billing that the SCE portion of our bill.
That's correct, and the CCAs have been very involved in the process. What I can say is that their focus has been on making sure that CCA customers fully understand what's happening. You know, that was something that the commission felt strongly about, that there has to be a robust program for marketing, outreach, and education. And in fact, tomorrow, the CPUC is having a workshop to discuss that very thing with all the utilities as well as all the other stakeholders. Tentatively, what it looks like is that there could be 6 months of outreach and education that takes place before this is implemented, but it'll continue even after it's implemented so that customers fully understand what's going on. And part of that discussion is going to be, well, what do you call this? Is it called a fixed charge, a flat rate? The CPUC has suggested calling it a flat rate. It might be called a basic charge. All that's going to get clarified, and there'll be months and months of education to customers, CCA customers, and then direct Edison customers, so that everybody understands their bill in the future.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Great presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now I will be briefly reviewing the reliability report for Sierra Madre as soon as it gets pulled up. But basically, the reliability report is published every year as required by the CPUC for the investor-owned utilities to inform the communities about the reliability history in their cities. And it's published on our website. And so the reports were recently published for this year. And what it contains is the data from last year in terms of the reliability here in Sierra Madre. I'm going to skip over some of these slides. Like I said, it's available on our website, and I've reviewed it before. I want to get down to the meat of things. Given that Sierra Madre is located in a high fire area, I think this slide will be of interest. Over the past 5 years, SCE has invested heavily in reducing the probability of a catastrophic wildfire, such as the Bobcat fire that happened a few years ago. And over the past 5 years, we've installed over 5,000 miles of covered conductors, so that's the insulated wires that prevents, palm fronds from sparking or other, issues with sparking of the wires. And then we've also installed weather stations that help us to pinpoint more closely where a potential event might happen. We have high definition cameras that are installed up in the mountains that kind of give a really clear view, that help us catch fires even earlier as soon as they start, as well as other improvements to the grid. And by our estimates, over those past 5 years, with all these improvements, we have reduced the probability of fires by 85 to 88% since 2018. So we're really proud of that progress that we've made in installing all that. You can look in here that we've surpassed pretty much all of our goals in terms of the installation of all those improvements. As well, we also have community crew vehicles that can be deployed throughout our service territory to help customers in the event of a public safety power shutoff. That's when we preemptively shut off the power in order to prevent a wildfire. I have more information on that. I can come back at a later date to review that as well. So just going to move forward to the actual reliability overview. And again, I'm happy to respond to any questions on the other information. So, what is reliability? In the simplest terms, it's having dependable electricity when you need it, which is going to become even more important as the state moves towards electrification of buildings and our transportation. And so, we want to make sure you all understand what are the different types of outages, what are the causes, and how they impact your community. So there's four major categories of outages. We have our maintenance outages, and those are planned outages that are, the residents receive notification of 7 to 10 days in advance so that they can plan, either to be elsewhere during the day when it's happening or to have, backup battery to prepare for that. Then you have the repair outages, and these are unplanned outages, and that's what this reliability report focuses on. So I'll be going into more detail in terms of what are the various causes that we track. So we have sustained outage that are greater than 5 minutes, and then you have momentary outages that are less than 5 minutes, and so that's also something we track. Then you have the public safety power shutoff, as I've mentioned, in order to prevent wildfires. And major event days, which you might be caused by heat waves, etc. And those are when you have a greater outage that's impacting greater customers, and so that's maybe longer duration, and so that's tracked separately as well. So how do we measure? We have these terms that sometimes sound like Greek. You have SAIDI, SAIFI, MAFI. And so basically the SAIDI measures the duration. In the average, what is the average amount of time the power service was unexpectedly interrupted? You have frequency, so that's the SAIFI. What's the average number of times that the power service was interrupted? And then MAFI is related to the momentary outages. But we'll mostly be focusing on the SAIDI and the SAIFI, duration and frequency. So what are the causes of outages when they're unplanned? So the categories we have are equipment failure, such as transformers, conductors that experience some sort of failure. You have vegetation and animals, which, as you're very aware here in this community, you got a lot of squirrels. Not really, the bears aren't quite a problem, but the squirrels definitely are. But then you have palm fronds, tree branches that will fall on the wire, and so that might cause a short circuit or an interruption. That's usually when they patrol, they can't really find the cause, they'll mark that. But a lot of times what we've heard is it's usually vegetation or animal, but the patrol just can't find the evidence of that, and so they'll put it in the other category. And then operations, we might have been doing some work on something and cause an outage unexpectedly. Third party, those are car hit poles, metallic balloons, and so that's that category. And then again, as I mentioned, the public safety power shutoffs is another category. So I've got some great news. For 2023, the numbers actually improved above 2022. And especially when you look at duration, it improved a great deal. So if you look in 2022, the SAIDI for Sierra Madre, that's the blue bar, you're at 351 minutes average that customers experienced. And I know that's the year that I came to speak, because you guys are like, hey, something's going on. We're hearing from the residents, and yes, so the data shows that yes, there was an issue. But as you might also recall, I had our district manager come, give an explanation, a very detailed explanation in terms of what we were going to do. There was going to be a cutover from the circuits. Also, the substations were going to be worked on. And so all that work has been progressing since that time. And so we see the numbers for 2023 in terms of duration. Customers are now just above the SCE system-wide average here, so it's 122, which is about 3 times less than it was the year before. And then in terms of frequency, you still have a higher frequency of interruptions than the average, but it is lower than the year before. And then Mayfie, yeah, it's also less than the system-wide average, actually a lot less, and improved from the year before. So, and there's also, the historical, you can see 2021 and 2020. And so that's the good news that I bring here today, and I'm so happy to share that. But then going into the actual causes, so when there was an outage, the duration, what impacted the duration was, it looks like mostly primarily equipment failure. So again, we're continuously working on our grid to ensure that it's up to date and does not have as much failures. And then followed by operations, vegetation, animal, and third party, et cetera. And then when you look at the causes for the frequency, again, it's equipment failure, followed by vegetation and third party very closely, and then operations. And so Sierra Madre has 8 circuits, and that's the list of the circuits right there. And then right next to the name, you'll see 16 kV. And it looks like they've all been converted to 16 kV. And so that's as a result of the cutover work, because there was previously a circuit that was like still a 4 kV. And there was that was the circuit that was causing a lot of issues.
It actually looks like 3 or 4 of them, about half are still 4.
Oh, okay. I'm not really.
I know,
So,
it's
yeah,
a
it's-
small slide, so it's hard to tell.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so the Lima, Lowell, Mohawk, it says, our slides say 4 kV, but this says, some of them say 4 kV and 16 kV, so is it?
Okay, so I'll look into that,
Okay.
because,
Actually, your slide does all say 16.
yeah, this slide says all 16 kV, this was pulled directly. You know what, I'll look into that, because
Well, what
I
it
think,
says is,
yeah.
it says, there's a 4.16 or 4.16.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's, yeah,
Okay, yeah, so that's right. Okay, so yeah, so 16 kV, those are the most up-to-date ones, and then 4.6, they really should change that. It's too close.
is that a 4
Yeah,
4
thank
kV
you.
then?
Yes, so it is 4 kV, sorry.
Okay.
Now I can see this much clearer. Yeah, so you're right, so half of them are 4 kV. So I'll look into that just to get an update on the cutover work that had been planned, and just to make sure how that's all planned out. So thank you for pointing that out.
I mean, the good news is the ones that are on our slide that are, 4 kilovolts?
Yes.
Yeah, are, those are the 4 with the fewest number of customers, so it does look like the circuits that serve the most customers in town have been converted, so that's good.
Right, and so the cutover work was intended to bring more customers over to the 16 kV circuits. And then this map shows the circuits, and all but 2 of them are PSPS circuits. They're high fire areas, so they're subject to our PSPS process. But in the 5 years, or actually 6 years now that I've been here, I don't believe any of the Sierra Madre circuits have ever been considered for PSPS to be preemptively shut off. So that's good news.
I'm confused by that, because I thought we were having PSPS shut-offs. I thought that's what all the 2020s were the PSP, we had zones, like I can remember 2020, like we were rotating zones and having shut-offs. Is it something else?
No, that is the rotating outages, and that's when CAISO at the state
That
level.
was a supply. That was, okay.
That's when there's high heat and there's limited supply, exactly. So
Okay.
you get notifications that you might be, have to reduce your usage. You get your flex alerts, and so that's a separate process. That's more for the limited supply. PSPS, Public Safety Power Shutoff. That's to prevent wildfire, and so that's when we have wildfire weather. We have a significant process in terms of how we, prepare for that, notify cities, and that's, so it's separate.
So we haven't had any PSPSs in the 5 years?
No.
Okay.
Oh, okay, okay, and then a new improvement that came up last year, we now have a capital improvement map that's accessible online to the public, and it's updated every month. So if you go into that search bar, you type in Sierra Madre, it will pop up a map of all the infrastructure work that is planned in that area. So I encourage you to look, go to the website, sc.com/capital improvements, and you can take a look at what's going on, what's planned for the city. And then, yeah, and the backup slides, good reading material for when you're ready for bed. But no, it provides even more in-depth data for all the circuits. So, is there any questions?
I will open it up for questions.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, please.
So, looking at the backup, I do see that the Baldwin circuit, which is a 16 kV, had a SAIDI of 557.6, which was higher than the average. Was that associated, if you know, with, I think we had a substation on West Bonita that had a fire or had some issues. Was that associated with that, if you know, or?
I could look into that for
Okay.
you.
'Cause
Yeah,
that's
I can.
that is like the most residents too.
Yeah, so the Baldwin circuit, yeah, I'll look into that for you.
Okay, and I also wanted to applaud you. I mean, when you were here last time, wasn't a happy meeting for you. We've in the canyon, and I think it was the northwest corner of Sierra Madre. I think things have gotten tremendously better. We're not getting the emails like we used to regarding things just shutting off.
That's
So
great to hear.
thank you for that. And kind of in the first part of your presentation, and we were talking about those public safety power shutoffs, and now all of our cities a high severity fire zone. But thanks to Mayor Pro Tem Parkhurst, he did mention some of the programs you have for battery backups. And there's a lot of us that work from home in town, and if we had a shut off and our Wi-Fi goes down and or our computers just shut off, that could be bad for us. So could you explain any programs you have for like battery backups for computers? I know I was able to get a battery backup for just running some emergency things with a rebate through Southern California Edison. But could you explain to our residents what types of programs you have?
Absolutely. So one program that's very important to note is our critical care battery backup program. And so that's for customers who rely on energy or electricity for life-saving purposes, right? And so they're known as our critical care customers. So we have the one umbrella program that's called Medical Baseline. And so anybody that has a note from their doctor that needs electricity for whatever reason, whether it's air conditioning to prevent an asthma attack, or they have, some sort of pump that they need that's working or whatnot, they can apply to that program for a reduced rate, or to get more time on the reduced rate. And then within that, you have critical care customers, and those are customers that cannot go beyond 2 hours without electricity. And so that's very important for customers to self-identify with Edison, because we wouldn't know otherwise, right? And so in cases such as, public safety power shutoffs, we have people who will make special contact to those critical care customers, phone numbers, if they can't reach them, phone calls, and if they can't reach them, they'll go knock on their door to make sure that they're aware that an outage is going to occur. So anyways, that being said, those customers are eligible for reduced rates on the battery backups. And then also, if you go to the SC Marketplace, I think it's marketplace.sc.com, there's a whole list of battery backups that people can look on, and there's rebates that are available for them as well. Like, to backup, such as, the critical laptop for work,
Thank you, and I do recall you mentioning those programs last time as well, and I brought those programs to our Senior Community Commission, whom none of them knew about those programs. So now we're like a year and a half later. So just if you could contact staff and kind of refresh that, so we can get that to our commission, and then our commission can then disseminate some of that information to our seniors.
Absolutely.
I think that would be super helpful.
Yes, because exactly, the more they're educated, the more they know, the more they sign up, and so it makes the process much easier.
Thank you. That's
Yeah,
all I
thank
have,
you.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Lowe?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. Thank you again. And I was actually, while you were just saying that before, I was looking up your marketplace and looking at the backup. So, good segue. I really appreciate your presentation. I think there was so much that was gained from the last time you were here, and you followed through on all of those descriptions, and it makes it very simple for what you guys are doing. So when people ask us, we're able to tell them specifically what you are doing to improve things and how it has improved. So thank you. My question was, when you were talking about the different wildlife mitigation issues with, mitigation issues with the power lines and cameras and such, were any of those done here? I know it was done across California, but did we have any cameras installed? Do we have insulators over, particularly in our canyon area where we have a high amount of foliage that as a canopy over that area? And I know you guys have done some trimming in the past years, but I haven't seen anything more recent.
Yes, so there was a map, and let me just double check to see if it's on this map. That there are maps that note where we have our cameras, and I'm not sure if this map shows, but actually if I could pull up the capital improvements map and send it to you as of this date, and I believe that shows where all the weather stations are and the wildfire detection cameras. So I'll be sure to send that information.
Councilmember Lowe, I will state that I think it was about a month ago on Grandview at least, they had contractors with drones. They were SE contractors with drones looking at
Smart.
foliage on lines and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is part of our program, is to use drones to inspect all the infrastructure, which gives our troublemen on the ground a more expansive view, and we're able to detect a lot more things through the drone program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Lowe, if I may add, Jeanette talked about the partnership that we have, and I'm happy to report that Edison does have cameras in our canyon, and through a program with UC San Diego, we have access to those cameras.
Oh.
And we use that in our EOC in the event of an emergency or a fire, to help us identify how the fires are moving, how the winds are blowing, and so we do have access to some of those cameras through that program.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and actually the public has access to the program, so that's another link I'll send that anyone can actually access. Yep.
Other questions?
And then, just to bring it up preemptively, there have been concerns in the past of privacy concerns. What can the camera see? But they're so high up, they're on our transmission towers, and they really, it's more of a overview and not really looking into people's windows. So.
That's good. Other questions?
I had a couple.
Sure.
So I look at the, so thank you, by the way, and thank you for all the efforts here. And there's lots of improvement, lots of good things. I look at the SAFE, and it's still, the frequency is almost twice what others are. Can you talk a little bit about what's causing that? What is it about Sierra Madre that's causing the frequency of interruptions to be much higher than the rest of the territory?
Right, and so if we look here on slide 19, the primary reason is equipment failure. And so that is something that our district is aware of and constantly working towards.
Can you expand a little bit on kind of what the type of equipment is? What is it that's failing? What are the things? Is it, and where is it failing? Or is it in our canyon? Is it where is it that you're seeing this, if you know?
In terms of the types, that's something I can go back to our district manager to see if they can sort of give us a better idea of whether it's transformers or insulators or, is it cable? So, I can get a better sense from them since they're closer to the work. And then in terms of your second question, I think that can be seen in the actual backup slides where it goes circuit by circuit. And so then you'll see which circuits have the biggest problems in terms of the reason, right? So as Councilmember Garcia pointed out, there's the Baldwin circuit, which seems to have high incidence. And so that breaks it down even further. So I could take a closer look at that and get back to you.
Great, thank you. With the reconductoring you're doing, so this is just coating the wires, right?
Well, it's they're replacing the wires with covered insulated wires.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right.
so it's not just coating them; they're actually
Instead of
replacing the
replacing
whole
them.
wire. Yeah.
And does that increase the amount of voltage that they can? Well, it wouldn't be the amount of voltage. Does that increase their capacity?
I don't believe so. I think the primary purpose is just to prevent, both outages as well as the sparking. And so it's a purely preventive measure in terms of to avoid all that.
Okay, Okay. Going back to the backup, so you've got kind of, as I'm hearing, there were like 3 really different programs. There's the medical baseline. So if you've got a medical baseline, that makes sure that you're our kind of first on, last off type of thing. Like it's like they're making sure you've got the backup to be able to make sure that happens.
Well, medical baseline, what it does is gives you an extended length of time on the lowest tier because you have a medical need. But
Okay.
then within that, you have a class of customers who are critical care who cannot be without electricity for more than 2 hours. And so that places them on an internal list for us to be able to check in on them for any public safety emergencies or public shutoffs. And we now have a public safety portal that allows our city partners to access that information, because in the past, we couldn't just simply hand over that customer information because of customer privacy issues. And so there was this whole convoluted process in order to be able to send that information. Actually, anyways, it was a whole long process. But now we have this portal that our municipal partners can register with and log into to have direct access to that information.
So you've got medical baseline, which is like 2 hours. Then you said there's a second time frame that was a little bit longer. Is that right?
So that's the critical care. The critical care is the
Okay,
2
so-
hours. You can't be without 2 hours, and so they're just a specific category
Okay.
of customer. Yeah,
So
but
it's
it falls
a
under
2 hour.
medical baseline.
Okay, so it's medical baseline, there's 2 hours. And then there are people that are in the high fire severity zone, that if you're in that area, you can get the portable power generators.
Yeah, critical
What-
care battery backup. And so you have to be in a high fire zone as well as eligible for critical care.
So, but there's another category. If you're in the high fire severity zone, you can also get a discount on a battery backup, a portable power generator. And this is what I want to dig into this is that neither Councilmember Garcia nor myself are part of the critical care, but because we were before the city was all designated as a high fire severity zone, we were above Grandview, and so we're in that high fire severity zone. And because we're in that, as I understood it, and I actually took advantage of it, you can get a portable power station so that you've got that in case you get a shut off, that you get that discount because you're in that higher risk area. Is that right?
I'll double check on the details, and I can get that to city manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's helpful. Great.
Thank you.
And then if I can just take a second and just go out real bigger picture, because when you're talking about coding the lines, it made me think about one of the biggest challenges we have in meeting our renewable energy goals in the state is transmission, right? And so because you have a large portion of the transmission grid, I'm curious to know at any of the reconductoring that you're doing at the transmission side, because as I understand and what I've read and heard is that by updating those transmission lines, we can put more capacity on them. That means that we can get more of that wind, water, and solar to us and transmit it to our residents. Because right now, and you probably know, there's a backlog, right? We can't get solar or wind on the grid very easily. It's a log jam. And one of the options, there's a bunch of permitting reform that can happen, but there's also like redoing the power lines. And is there anything, can you tell us anything about that, or can you get us more information? I'm really curious about that, because that's another part of the equation for us to meet our state targets.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked that question, because in our most recent white paper that we've published, it's called Countdown to 2045, right? So 2045 is the big year that the state has set, to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And so by 2045, because of all the push towards electrification, we expect the demand for electrification to increase by 80%, right? In order for the utilities to meet that demand, we are going to have to increase the building of transmission lines by 4 times, and then the build out of our distribution lines by 10 times, right? However, it's been taking so many years to get our transmission lines to be approved. There's so many processes, permitting, And so one call that we are making is sort of like waving the flag, like, hey, we got to look at this now, is to streamline that process for permitting, for reviewing, so that we can build these transmission lines and distribution lines at a much faster rate that we are going to need as the demand for electrification increases. So that's definitely, I'll send the link to that white paper, Countdown to 2045, that sort of lays out our recommendations, because it's really going to take government at all levels, and as you know, local government, with the permitting and the requirements, they're a part of that, so.
If there's ways that we can support you on that, please let us know.
Absolutely, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. This has been really great. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good week. Thanks for having us.
All right, switching gears, I'd like to call up our Community Services Supervisor because we are declaring July Parks and Recreation Month. I don't think it's just us, but. Thank you. Thanks, all of you. This is actually very good timing because you were here to hear all of our thank yous for the amazing work that you did, for all of the amazing activities of our 4th of July extravaganza. So anyway, we are declaring July Parks and Recreation Month, and I will just read this out. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Sierra Madre, Parks and Rec support health and wellness, improve the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, and recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. And whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation is a leading provider of healthy meals, nutrition services, senior programming, and whole family activities such as out-of-school time, youth sports, and environmental education, which are critical to development. And whereas Parks and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, and an attraction and retention of businesses, as well as crime reduction. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council does hereby proclaim July as Parks and Recreation Month in the City of Sierra Madre. Presented this 9th day of July 2024 by me, the Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Robert Parkhurst, and Council Members Edward Garcia, Jean Goss, and Christine Lowe. Thank you very much. Happy month. You guys hold this. They like this as the background. Yeah. Someone come on this side. Don't go and cover the logo.
Thank you.
All right, in our last presentation of the night, I'd like to call up Public Works Director Yanez to give an update on our library improvement project.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Yesterday I met with Vertex Engineering along with TSK Architects for our weekly construction meeting. During this long 4 or 5 hour long meeting, we accomplished quite a bit, finalizing a number of pending issues that were brought to my attention a couple of weeks ago. This is regarding mechanical, the oversight. It's very important that we cover all mechanical components to this project because it is an existing building. The existing mechanical parts need to agree with the new mechanical parts, this being the elevator, the new HVAC system. Everything seems to be in order. We are moving forward with the current plans. This includes our switch gears, collaborating and working with our SoCal Edison friends and making sure that the order of switch gears is on time. As of yesterday, the order has been placed and it's on schedule. There is a long wait. This is across the country for many switchgears projects around the country. For our project, we are on schedule. We also kind of reviewed our construction contract and general conditions, the language, the boilerplate information, which is being conducted by Vertex. And they will present the final draft tomorrow to me. So hopefully that'll be here on time. Another review that we kind of dove into is, again, reviewing the budget, which is very important. The numbers to this project, as of yesterday, things look good. We are on schedule budget-wise. With the project picking momentum now, meetings with Vertex and TSK will be increasing. We're conducting more meetings regularly. We're looking at 2 to 3 times a week as the project now begins to take off. The RFQ, request for qualifications bidding process, will close this coming Thursday. This request is for the general contractor who will come on board to be conducting the actual construction work. This is done digitally for this project. I will, on Thursday, when that closes, I will present our findings to our city clerk along to our city manager. Our groundbreaking ceremony is scheduled for this coming September the 17th. So hope to see you all there. This concludes my update report. At this time, I will address any questions you may have.
Anyone have questions?
Just a quick one. What's been the response or the uptake for the RFQ? Do we expect multiple general contractor proposals? Kind of what are you seeing from people that are looking at it?
We have one confirmed who has submitted a request. Well-known organization in Southern California. As of now, I have reviewed their current standing. They qualify. As of this morning, we have 5 other additional firms who have shown interest and who have advised Vertex that they are very much interested in submitting a request for qualifications.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That was my question as well, so thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate the update.
Thank you, folks.
Okay, moving on to the business of the night. We'll start with our truncated consent calendar. Madam City Clerk, would you read the remaining 4 items?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Council is being asked to consider consent item A, which is the resolution 24-45 approving certain demands. Staff's recommendation is the City Council approve and adopt resolution 24-45. Consent item B is the consideration of the California Highway Patrol Cannabis Tax Fund Grant Award. And it is recommended by city staff that the City Council authorize the city manager to approve and sign the grant awarded to the police department in the amount of $310,000. Consent item C is the consideration of the second reading for ordinance 1470, that is the ordinance of the City of Sierra Madre amending Chapter 17.08 definitions, Chapter 17.82 historic preservation, Chapter 17.85 home occupations, and Chapter 17.88 temporary use permits of Title 17 zoning of the Sierra Madre Municipal Code. It is recommended by city staff that the City Council please conduct its second reading, which we just did, and adopt ordinance 1470. And lastly, consent item D is the consideration of resolution 24-49, amending the City of Sierra Madre's classification plan and salary matrix. City staff recommends that resolution 24-49 be approved by the City Council. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions about any of the consent items? A, on demands. B, on the CHP grant award. C, second reading related to the zoning ordinance. Or D, the update of the classification and salary matrix.
I have a question about item number D.
Sure.
I guess it's probably for city manager, Reynoso. So the salary matrix is we're changing some of the amounts earned. Now, are those more standard with what's known in the industry in our local cities? And then the second question is this impacting our budget as we've already projected this year?
To answer your second question first, there is no budget impact. Library staff reduced the hours of their overtime, their part-time budget to make these adjustments. And these adjustments do bring our library staff more in line with comparable agencies nearby.
It was just library staff?
So the Community Services Department also has a change in title only, and that is also to bring that title in line with industry standard.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? All right, then I will open it up for public comment on these 4 items.
Madam Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards, and we did not receive any emails from the public on these topics. And it does not look like anyone is coming forward to the podium.
All right, I'll bring it back to council. I'll just say that I commend our police department for identifying and applying for a grant that's going to bring us $310,000 into the city. It's going to, targeted use for driving while under the influence of cannabis, programming and education, and also enforcement. But it will also be able to fund equipment purchases and other things as well. So I really appreciate that foresight, because that obviously is a large amount that will impact our budget and hopefully free up money elsewhere in the budget. Anybody else have anything? Then I would
I
recommend.
move to approve items A through D on the consent.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. All right. So now we have the next in a long series of public hearings for our planning commission, for our planning department. Senior Planner Wolf, would you like to come up and introduce the first reading of ordinance 1471?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. Tonight, I do not have a report prepared for first reading. Staff did receive additional information, and we wanted to retract the report and bring it back to July 23rd for continued first reading for more accurate information.
Thank you. I would appreciate a motion to continue this hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Is that for a
July.
date?
23rd.
You wanna?
It was remind me the date.
July 23rd, 2024.
July 23rd, 2024. Date certain.
Thank you. And would you like to second again?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we're now moving on to discussions, and we have as our first discussion item the consideration of appointments to serve on the vacancies for our various commissions. As I've been noticing for many times, we have 1 vacancy on our planning commission and 2 on our senior commission.
Madam Mayor, just remind me, when are we doing the planning commission's regular schedule? Where did we move that in the agenda? Item E that was on consent?
I think it's going to be next. I think we want to get the folks who are here
Makes
for the
perfect sense to me.
the
Sorry, I
commission
just
appointments.
didn't catch when that was.
I appreciate that. Madam City Clerk, are you going to report on this?
Yes, I am, thank you. Both the Senior Community Commission and the Planning Commission have experienced commissioners who have completed their terms and are no longer eligible for an additional term. City staff, in anticipation of these vacancies, recruited and provided flyers, information to the public. This was done 6 months in advance. As a result, the city staff received a number of applications for both the Senior Community Commission and the Planning Commission. Since then, and just before July 1st, the city staff learned that one of our Commissioner Lim on the Natural Resources Commission chose to not seek a second full term, and so we currently have a vacancy on the Natural Resources Commission, but city staff at this time does not have any applications to bring forth, and so we are beginning our recruitment process, and we'll bring that to the City Council for consideration as soon as we are able to obtain applications. But at this time, the City Council is being asked to fill the vacancies on the Senior Community Commission that were recently left when Commissioner Patrick Holland completed his term, and Anita Thompson completed her term on the Senior Commission. There are 5 applications that the City Council has before the body to consider. And then on the Planning Commission, there are 7 applications that are being considered. On the Community Services Commission, Chair Palmer is eligible for reappointment and has indicated an interest to be reappointed for her first full term. She's currently completing a partial term and is eligible for 2 additional full terms. That concludes my report, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you. I think we'll start with questions, if any, and then public comment, which I think we can include any statements by any of our applicants who are present. So I will start with questions.
Which commission?
Oh, sorry. Either way, we can just have questions sort of both ways and then have presentations. Thank you. Anybody have questions? Okay. All right, then I would invite any of our applicants. Let's start with.
I'm sorry,
sure.
I was processing a little bit. So just as a clarification question, do you, for either of the commissions, do you have to be a Sierra Madre resident to be on the commission, on either of the commissions?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. There are currently no restrictions on residency for any of the commissions.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so I will open up for public comment, but let's start first, I think, with folks who are here to apply for the vacancies for the Senior Commission. So anyone who's here who wants to speak, you don't have to speak, but if you'd like to, please approach, and we'll start with that. Okay, seeing none, then we'll move to the Planning Commission applicants. And so anyone who's here who'd like to speak on behalf of their application for the Planning Commission vacancy.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Shane Henson, and I've applied to be a member of the Planning Commission. As you might note from my application, I am a rather new resident in Sierra Madre. However, my wife and I chose this community consciously. We actually visited, we were looking at houses in Sierra Madre, and we had, I think, 5 people in the span of one day tell us we had to come back for the Wisteria Festival that weekend. And so we decided to attend, and obviously we were enchanted by how delightful it was and how amazing the community was. And so we decided we wanted to make this our home. And not only we want to make this our home, but we wanted to realize this was a community we wanted to be a part of. And so, as a new resident, I was trying to figure out ways to give back to the community. I saw the vacancy here for the Planning Commission, and I decided to throw my hat in the ring. I'd like to highlight just 4 things I think that might separate me potentially from other applicants. First, my professional background. I'm a legal aid attorney. I work at Inner City Law Center downtown. I represent homeless and at-risk homeless folks here in LA County. And that's given me a good background in housing policy and housing law, both at the federal, state, city, and county level here. And I would be applying that knowledge to the work on the commission. Additionally, I represent renters, and I myself am one. And I think that is a bit of diversity of maybe experience that maybe other members of the commission might not have in the Planning Commission when considering issues with multifamily housing or other things of that nature. Third, I'd like to note that before law school, I have some legislative experience. I'm originally from Michigan. Back home in Michigan, or now this is home, but back in Michigan, I was a deputy chief of staff for a state senator and staffed the senator on multiple committees. And worked on the Hill during law school, and so I understand the value of committee work and the important work you all do here, twice a month, and also what the Planning Commission would be doing, and would bring that experience to bear as well. Finally, just generally my legal education, I am, adept at reading really boring statutes, and I know that land use policy is not the most exciting thing to read. But I think my legal education has given me the experience to distill that information and convey it in layman's terms, not only to members of the council, but also the community at large, and I think that'd be very helpful. finally, I think I do a good job. I really like this community. I really would like to get involved. And that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. My name is Kevin Brennan. I did apply for the Planning Commission position. Was not prepared with a statement tonight, so I'll do my best. I've been a resident of Sierra Madre for about 18 years. I'm recently retired. My background prior to retiring about a year ago, I was in the finance and investment management industry here in Pasadena for a number of years, holding a senior position running operations for a large investment firm in Pasadena. Since I've prior in my history working for the city and volunteering, since retiring, I'm a volunteer for the Sierra Madre Police Department, an active volunteer with the police department. In 2010, I was also a member of the Users Utility Commission, running that review in 2010. Other involvement in the city, I've been a volunteer for the Gooden School Board. I was a volunteer there for about 4 years and a member of the chair of the board of the Gooden School, and I was also responsible for managing their finance committee. I am not an attorney, but I do have a lengthy accounting background and have served on a number of boards and willing to serve here in Sierra Madre if I can be of help to the Planning Commission. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Romero?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. I also did not come prepared with a speech, but I think it's important to highlight that while I am a youth resident and member applying for the Planning Commission, I do want to highlight some of the experience I have that would qualify me for this position. I've worked locally on the Public Transportation Subcommittee and am partially responsible, along with my colleagues, for the return of the bus, Line 268, which has been running very smoothly, might I add. I've also worked with the Pasadena Complete Streets Coalition on infrastructure projects which focus on city planning, specifically a Colorado Boulevard redesign in Old Pasadena to allocate room for a bus lane to hopefully reduce congestion, and I've worked on the planning side of that project, which is hopefully going to come pretty soon. I've also worked with the Complete Streets Coalition to hopefully also advocate for infrastructure developments with bike lanes and reducing traffic, not traffic flow, traffic speeds, so that way it's safer for pedestrians and cyclists to get around. I also want to highlight my experience with organizations that I have helped co-found at my school, such as the Maranatha Supplies Incorporated business, which I have started with a friend, which I've also managed finances and operations with, which I'm saying which a lot, but it provides students an easy and affordable way to access school supplies. So that's a little bit of background on me with operations and my city planning background. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Anyone else? Okay, then I'll open up public comment if anyone's here to provide input, comment on the process. If there's anyone who has that kind of public comment. I don't think we received any emails, is that correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay, so I will bring this back for discussion. Historically, we have done this in such a way that if the council members are so inclined, they provide the mayor with input and feedback as to their review of the applicants and perhaps recommendations, so we can be flexible on that. But that's typically how we've done that, and unless I hear otherwise, I think we can do that again. So I'm all ears.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, oh, please. I'm sorry?
Senior committee, we're starting with.
Yeah, whichever you want to start with.
Senior,
Sure.
or just, senior, okay. Since I had to do this last year, I'm gonna keep it brief, because I had to disappoint people. So I don't envy you in your position tonight.
Maybe my least favorite
Yeah,
task of
we
this,
have,
of this.
we have, in both of these commissions, we have great applicants, so it's not fun telling somebody, sorry, but please try again. So I don't envy you tonight, Madam Mayor. But as far as the senior commission, you can't go wrong with any of it. I was looking through the 42 years as a resident, 45 years as a resident, 30 plus years as a resident, and what do we have? 35 years as a resident and 30 years, and a lot of community input. I would probably recommend two, because I know both of them, would be, Mary Carney and Stephen Hydorf. Those would be the two. I'm not saying, you can't go wrong,
I know.
with this packet, so those would be my two recommendations.
Thank you. Let's stick with senior commission, and then we'll come back around for planning.
I'm actually very similar in what I was looking for. I was like, oh my gosh, the senior commission is really hard. And I think that you look at the year's experience and everything that they've brought in, it's so diverse. I wish you could, we could increase that one to 7 and then bring them in, because it's really fantastic, and it's hard to say no. I agree, Mary Carney. She's already very involved with the seniors in our city. I do know Judy Gunn. I think she's also a great candidate. I know Stephen Hydorf has volunteered so many years of his life, and he's very familiar with a lot of the other commissions. He's the youngest on the seniors, maybe, but I also would recommend him. So those are the three that you kind of look at if you wanted to.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, what an impressive group, and I think I know them all, so I'm glad you're making the decision. Mary Carney, for sure, she's just amazing. She's my number one. And then the question is, the others, who stands out? They're all top flight. So I'm going to make a diversity call on Steve Hydorf, because we're losing Pat Holland, the only man on the commission.
Oh.
And so Steve would bring a male perspective to the commission. The other ladies, however, if you choose them, I'm with you, because they're good people.
Mhm.
You can't go wrong on this packet. That's how I see it.
I don't have anything to add. I echo all of the challenges. I'm thrilled that we've got so many people willing to step forward. I mean, it just shows how much people care about this community, how they want to dedicate their time to it. I'm like others, I'm glad you're making the decision this time. But I echo others. I think Hydorf and Carney would be my two top choices on it, and I think you get different pros and cons with either one of them, I think you can't go wrong with either one.
Great. Yes, I don't envy myself either. Yeah, this, like I said, this is probably my least favorite task as mayor, and there's lots of great things about being the mayor, but I will echo Mayor Pro Tem's point about how amazing it is to get people with this longevity in our city, and so many of them have such a long history of volunteering with so many organizations. I also echo Councilmember Lowe's point that part of my reaction to this in particular was like, we should just accept all of them and have a bigger commission. So I didn't have a chance to reach out to Commissioner Kroc, but I was gonna perhaps suggest to her the other folks that applied that don't get named at the commission, that perhaps they are still invited to be participatory in various efforts by the commission. I mean, even a ad hoc committee to help with certain events, or whatever it might be, or have the commission think about whether more hands would be helpful in that regard. So I do have to say, though, I think we are continuing to prove as a council that we are very much kind of in the spirit of collaboration and on sort of the same wavelength, because my coming into this, my sense was also that Mary Carney and Stephen Hydorf were the folks that I thought would be they're all going to do a great job, but particularly those two were on high on my list as well. So I'm glad to hear that we are again in agreement on important decisions. So I'm not sure either of them are actually here. So congratulations in absentia to our new senior community commissioners, commissioners, Mary Carney and Stephen Hydorf. Should we give them a round of applause? All right, Planning Commission. I'll let somebody else start.
Okay.
I can start on this one. Yeah, I think we've got a strong group of people here. I again appreciate everyone stepping forward. The Planning Commission is a more complicated commission than the others. It more frequently meets, so I think there's a lot to be considered in that. I am really, if I were to put my recommendation on one, it would be Mr. Henson. I think that his experience, in particular with low-income housing, I think with the RENA work that we've got going forward, I think it's just going to be really helpful to have that and help us figure out creative ways that we can do that. Our next housing plan, we just adopted the last one, but it's coming in like I think 2 or 3 years, and so I think we need to start planning on that now. And so that would be my recommendation for that position.
Thank you. Councilmember Goss.
My heart's kind of with Max Romero. I've worked with Max on the Transportation Subcommittee. He's a fantastic young man. Max, I feel like your future is unlimited. You know that. But I think we need somebody who can make a multi-year commitment here and 2 meetings a week. And I know you're going to be a star at college wherever you go. So I think this might be a little bit more than you can bite off. Having said that, I think the other folks in this, I was interested in several of them. I think get my glasses. I think Mr. Osmond's very interesting. He has a lot of relevant experience. But my top pick would be Shane Henson. I've got to know him recently. Actually asked him to consider applying for commissions. Very impressed with this young man and his background and frankly his spirit. He just when I first met him, and he's one of those people that just has a lot of enthusiasm and community spirit and youthful vitality, and he has a very pertinent skill set. So I'd hope that we could pick him, but Mr. Osmond would be my second pick.
Sure.
I would recommend Mr. Brennan because for multiple reasons. One, he is a Sierra Madre resident, and I value that. I think that's part of the stakeholders, whereas Mr. Osmond and one other person are not residents of Sierra Madre. He's a Pasadena resident. I would love for Mr. Henson to volunteer for other activities as well, but I feel like with this planning commission, it really needs to have someone who's been in the community and kind of understands some of the issues that have come in, and I think he has extreme ability to see the diversity in our town and really address some of those issues that are a little bit contentious, because that's where we see most of our contention now is the planning commission, and he did so well with the UUT. I know he's worked really well with that committee too. I've spoken to all of the committee members that were previously worked with him, and they said that he's really great to work with. He's very amicable and also has the knowledge that it takes to be involved in such an extensive commission, which I think is more work than most commissions. So I think I really encourage that we pick Mr. Brennan.
Thank you.
Yeah, Max, thank you for the application, and not to minimize your impact, but as mayor and mayor pro tem, I was really pushing for youth/student commissioners, and even on the planning commission, even though I think the planning commissioners weren't too enthusiastic about that. I think there are different interests, and I think you have obviously shown your interest to planning from what you've done for our community and what you're doing in Pasadena as well. But like Councilmember Goss, we know that it's a commitment. We like to have our commissioners around for 3 years and maybe 6 years. And I want you to not feel bad about leaving us and going to college wherever you would like to. So thank you for your application. Also thank Mr. Henson for his application. It's nice to have a JD on the council and also on the planning commission regarding codes and just reading voluminous documents. It's very helpful, as we saw with Commissioner Hutt. But I do think my recommendation, given the length of service, the length of time in the city, would be for Mr. Brennan from his time on the UUT Oversight Committee. When I do go to Planning Commission meetings, and even here on the council, as you know, I always think about unintended consequences and fiscal impacts, and I think someone with the finance and accounting background could bring something that that commission really hasn't had. So I think that Mr. Brennan would be top of my list, and the other applicants are great as well. Mr. Stevens, we see him at a lot of meetings, and no doubting his commitment. I'm just afraid that he would have to recuse himself quite a bit from some of the items, and we only currently have 5 on that commission. So that's where I'm sitting. My recommendation for Mr. Brennan.
Well, thank you all for your diligent review of this and your thoughtfulness, and I appreciate the feedback. And I think in this instance, I'm actually, at least in terms of the raw vote, I mean, it's a dead heat. I appreciate everybody's application. I mean, I really, again, this was a very strong group of folks. I appreciate the folks who've come tonight and spoke out on their behalf. Everyone is so qualified, and everyone, to everyone's point, brings something slightly different. And the Planning Commission is quite a heavy lift, and needs a lot of different perspectives. I appreciated the point Mr. Henson made about being a renter, and that probably does bring a diversity of experience to the commission. I think most of them are homeowners. And I definitely agree that, of course I agree that having a lawyer around is great. But, and I did some inquiry of other folks as well. And, one of the strong recommendations for Mr. Brennan was that he can take really complicated concepts and proposals and break them down into the manageable pieces and explain that to a community that doesn't necessarily have the experience or the time to delve into really complicated issues. And that, to me, describes the Planning Commission almost to a T, about taking complicated issues and proposals and breaking it down into manageable parts is exactly what they do every meeting. So that is my inclination to appoint Mr. Brennan to the Planning Commission for this one vacancy. I don't want that to discourage anyone from participation in everything. I think we did this a little bit at the beginning of this year about the number of organizations in this community that support everything that we do, from the Community Foundation to the Events Committee that we saw this weekend. I mean, there are just handfuls and most are suffering from decline in participation from a new generation. They are, their succession planning is lagging, let's put it that way. And so I encourage everyone who applied to reach out to me, to reach out to the city staff. There are so many opportunities to be involved in the city, and in so many different ways. And I think we're really in need of folks with youthful enthusiasm and love for the city. And I appreciate everybody's willingness to serve. So, Mr. Brennan, congratulations, and thank you so much for everybody else who applied. I appreciate it. Now for our rescheduled consent item E, Planning Manager Lynn.
Before we go, there is one more on the plan, on the community services. Do we need?
Do we need to take action on reaffirming Chair Palmer?
It's the same type of action, so you would just appoint her or direct staff to recruit.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, unless anybody has a...
100%. She's doing a phenomenal job as chair. And so that's part of, yes, we should do it. And I want to thank her personally for that work on it. As the liaison to that committee and seeing what she's doing, I'm really thrilled. So, yeah, very enthusiastic, yes.
Yes, no, I have no compunction to reappointing if that's what we need to do for that position. And then I'll just make my plea, because now I'll be making this plea to folks to apply for our vacancy on the Natural Resources Commission. And so we'll be doing that recruitment effort. I think it'll probably be a shorter recruitment, because we'd like to get someone on sooner rather than later, since we are now at a 4 person commission. So I will make that announcement right now, and then in future meetings as well, so that we can hopefully get equally impressive candidates for that, including maybe some folks who applied for these commissions and did not get picked.
That's what I was thinking.
All right, thank you for reminding me of that. Anything else on this front, Madam City Clerk?
That concludes Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. All right, now for our rescheduled consent item E, Planning Manager Lynn, are you going to present?
Good evening, mayors and members of the council. Staff is recommending that the City Council adopt the City Council Resolution 24-46, setting the Planning Commission's regular meeting date and time. As you know, we are always thinking of a way to encourage public participation. And with this alignment to the City Council starting time at 5:30 p.m., it will help encourage public participation. And also, in addition, when we have lengthy public discussions, and this will help eliminate us to schedule a special meeting for those public hearings. That concludes the written report. Happy to answer any question that you might have.
Does anyone have any questions?
Just one question. Was this unanimously the Planning Commission was okay with this change?
Correct. I have polled all the planning commissioners regarding the time change to be aligned with the City Council starting time.
And it was unanimous?
Yes, that's correct.
Unfortunately, I think our new commissioner just left. We should have asked him.
He's retired.
He's retired. Okay, if no questions, then I guess we'll open it up for public comment.
Madam Mayor, at present, we have no speaker cards, nor did the city clerk's office receive emails.
Any discussion?
Definitely, as the liaison, this is very exciting. By the time 7 o'clock comes, I'm like, I'm supposed to be getting into bed soon. So I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, I mean, I understand there's a push-pull, right? Because when I was the liaison, sometimes I was coming from work and I appreciated the later start, and so there's definitely pro and con, and we've had that discussion, I think, on multiple occasions at this council for commissions and this council. So I don't know if there was anything, City Manager, that prompted the reorganization that we wanted to discuss, or whether it was just highlighting the reason.
Madam Mayor, I think that we had one commissioner that had challenges getting here at 5:30, and so with the vacancy, our staff was able to pull the remaining commissioners. And again, this time change aligns with City Council, and we feel that it's better on staff. Will allow the meetings to end at a more reasonable time, and it'll be better for our community to be able to participate in the meetings.
Thank you. All right, I will bring it back then to council for discussion.
Yeah, if the current planning commission's on board with this, I think it's fine. As we see here, if we need to change it 2-3 years from now to a later date because of commitments of whoever's on the commission at that time, we can do so. But if it's easier for the commissioners, liaisons, staff, I'm all for it.
Same. Anything else?
Full
All right,
support.
then I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve Resolution 24-46 to change the Planning Commission regular meeting time to 5:30 start.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. Motion passes. Okay, I think we're now on to a discussion of the expansion of our Sierra Madre Cares program into our waste hauling billing relief program.
And Madam Mayor, I am going to pinch hit for Management Analyst Carlson, who had a family emergency. He's not able to be here. Madam Mayor and Council, the third item on the agenda for discussion tonight is the potential Sierra Madre Care Solid Waste Billing Relief Program. Staff is seeking direction on a couple of key approaches to developing this program, if the City Council would like to proceed with it. As outlined in the staff report, Sierra Madre residents and businesses have recently received compounded increases in their Athens bills. Several items were negotiated in the most recent agreement, including a one-time unrestricted $200,000 payment to the city. These funds may be used to rebate residents and/or commercial Athens customers to offset a portion of the increases. As outlined in the staff report, staff would like to get direction on two major questions. Would the city council like staff to proceed in using the $200,000 payment? And would city council like us to use a portion for these funds for the Sierra Madre Cares program? Would the city council like us to incorporate a program, a one-time program for all accounts, or to model the program after our low-income water rate that would impact our very low water rate customers or low water rate customers, in this case Athens Waste Services. So I do have a little bit of background on how the water rates are funded. So the water rates are offset is funded by the general fund, and we do about $24,000 a year for very low income residents. It reduces the average 3/4 inch meter by about $16 and also eliminates the UUT. If we were to incorporate this for the very low income qualifying residents, right now we have 21 residents, so it wouldn't impact that many residents, and the program would last somewhere between 6 to 8 years. If we would extend it to very low income residents, the threshold would go up for a typical family of 4. I think it increases the income level to about $100,000, so it could potentially benefit a lot more residents. And we'd have to see how many participants we get to see how many years we can fund the program. If we were to do this program for one time to every Athens customer, it would be about a $60 one-time reduction or rebate to every Athens customer. So what staff is seeking is direction from council on which alternative you would like us to do further analysis to bring back to council.
I have a question.
Just please ask questions
If we
first.
were not to spend any of this money, how else might we spend it?
Councilmember Goss, this is unrestricted funds. It goes into the general fund and we can use it in any way.
So in the spirit of our last budget discussions, it would seem to me that that's something that would give us flexibility we don't presently have.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Does Athens already offer a low income rate, or do they already have relief for low or very low income programs?
In my recollection of the rates that we just recently approved, I don't recall seeing a low income subsidy. I could be mistaken.
Any other questions, please?
So the 56 and change, 5624 increase, I know that was something that was kind of a surprise to everyone. What are the discussions we're having with Athens about that? I mean, that's part of, the reason I asked that part in this overall thing is that's part of what's driving this cost, right?
So we did have, I'll speak specifically to the residential accounts. We had the extraordinary rate increases for the organics program, and it was a 9% in July and another 9% in December, and then we had, I believe it was like 54 or 56% extraordinary rate increase for the gate fee.
Yeah.
So some of the discussions that we're having with Athens is consideration of going to a trash specific gate fee as opposed to something that's tied to Shoal Canyon. None of our trash gets diverted to Shoal Canyon, but our contract calls for our gate fee to be adjusted by the Shoal Canyon tipping fee every year. So some of the things that we're going to be looking at is this one-time 50+% increase to Shoal Canyon. Is this something that we can expect, or is this one time and in the future years the adjustments are going to be lower because they brought it up to where it needed to be, as opposed to if we were to switch to a trash specific CPI, then are we setting ourselves up for more consistent higher increases? So that's some analysis that staff's doing, but those are some options that we're considering.
Okay, so is it right to summarize that as saying that for this extraordinary rate fee, you're analyzing it and analyzing options, and so that's we don't know what the potential changes of that would be?
we don't know what the potential changes are gonna be, and sanitation district sets that gate fee, every year, sometime around October. We get notified in late October, November, and then that increase hits our residents on January.
And so I imagine Management Analyst Carlson is he'll be looking at that rate fee and let us know as soon as he sees it.
One of the challenges that we have is that, and I believe, Mayor, you sit on the sanitation commission, that a lot of that information doesn't come early enough for us to make the decisions that we need to make. So we are trying to see what we can do to get that information to see if we're anticipating, double-digit increases or high increases again, but right now we don't have that information.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have two questions. The first one is, when it comes to the gate fee, has there been comparisons with other dump stations or sites, or is it we just have to go with Shoal?
It's our contract.
So because we're stuck in a contract with Athens for this long, we have to go with that, and they're not analyzing any others?
So we are looking at amending the contract to change it, and it would be specifically tied to a trash CPI.
Have there been any studies or research done on what's the point of changing it if they're all the same?
Yeah, no, and when Athens was here, I think it was in the fall after this change had been made and presented, if you remember, they showed the differences in the various gate fees for, various local, and it looked like, if I can recall, what had happened is that Shoal Canyons had moved extremely small increments, up maybe close to zero for many years, and then we sort of had the benefit of that in action under our contract, and then it seems the interpretive of the change is that they realized how below all of the other gate fees they were, and then just did one big jump to sort of get them back into the range of what other fees were. And so, to City Manager Reynoso's point, there's this debate about whether, we stick with what we've done for many years, because frankly we got the benefit of the, zero or close to zero incremental changes over decades, then had to feel the pain, and it was just bad timing because we also had the rate increase because of the organics program. So, I think I don't know if we have a lot of predictability is the problem.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thanks. Question number 2 was, so the 200,000 extended the contract 2 more years, correct?
So the 200 was part of an overall package that extended the Evergreen contract for 2 more years.
Okay, now when does this expire totally? When would we be able to get out of this contract if we wanted to? And do an analysis of other companies versus Athens, because there are other companies that handle waste.
If you give me a moment, I'll pull up the contract and I'll check the term.
Thank you. I don't think so.
No, I think we have to have
That's why we have a
I think we have to have a termination event. I don't think there's a termination for convenience.
And would we have to repay back the 200,000? My question would be then.
Probably not if we terminate it in accordance with its terms, but if we tried to extract, then it would just be a fight, I suspect. And we did actually, I think, in the context of looking at the Athens contract, think about other providers. There really aren't as many choices as you might hope.
So actually, we did ask that question before, and we had not. We have not done we hadn't looked at the prices of the other companies.
Not the prices, you're right.
And in fact, even in Pasadena, if I did some research, and this is discussion, never mind. Stop myself.
I wasn't gonna have any questions, but I just have a quick one. Reflecting back on when Christian was here from Athens, and I asked him point blank, are you willing to work with us on this extraordinary increase on the tipping or gate fee? And he said, all of that is open for discussion. Do you feel like with your discussions with Athens, what he indicated has been in good faith?
I believe so. I mean, that option is available for us, and what I explained earlier, to look at a more trash-specific gate fee type of of approach. We just have to do the analysis to see if that's gonna benefit us.
Yeah, I think that's for another discussion, but I think it is applicable to our decision on this
Mhm.
200,000, so.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Okay, I think we're veering towards discussion, so I'll open it up for public comment, and then we can bring it back for discussion.
The answer.
Oh, sorry.
So regarding the term, it says, it was amended to read that the term of this agreement shall be for 27 years.
27 years.
And we can't, so it's gonna expire in 2040 on its own. We can't terminate the contract until 2025. And then it's gonna renew automatically for 1 year successive periods. And if at any point during those 1 year successive periods we wanna terminate, we have to do so for cause.
Do we know when in
Provide notice.
2025, the end of 2025?
July 23rd, 2025.
I'm sorry, and you said the notice of non-renewal has to be for cause?
Yeah, it says written notice of intent to terminate at least 90 days.
Anyway, I'm not
And I
sure.
believe, I believe it is for cause, but I can
Yeah,
confirm.
and I'm not totally sure that part is relevant for this discussion. Okay, so I'll open up for public comment, specific to, not talking about the rates, but about the potential use of the one-time funds, in part to, offset some of the increase for some of our customers. Some of our residents, I should say.
Madam Mayor, we have no speaker cards, nor did we receive emails.
Okay, great. So, all right, so let's go back to discussion.
So I think, Councilmember Goss brings up a point that I didn't even consider, that, there's no strings attached to it. I know it's within the scope of us extending the contract, so one would be inclined to have some type of waste management theme to the 200,000, but given our budget, I'm open to other considerations too. But if we are sticking with the solid waste relief issue, I'm inclined to direct staff to look at a needs-based type thing, because 60 some odd dollars one time, I just think it just washes away and it won't be realized or appreciated by the residents. We all got hit pretty hard. Yes, 60 some odd bucks is nice, but at the end of the day, I think it could impact some of our most needy residents better than the rest of us.
So I'm in agreement that I don't think the one-time fee for everybody would really make good use of that money. Considering we fell into a deficit this year, which we had to accommodate for to pass our budget, I'm less inclined to make this for a low-income reason. If there's only 31 people, this will benefit in our city when we have 8,500 or something residents in our city that total. So I think that maybe, since it's not specific and it goes into the general fund, that you look at using this for some of those things that other departments, all the departments had to make those cuts. And I think that with the shortcomings that we're feeling right now, that 200,000 would have covered that 141,000 this last year.
Yeah, I see your
I know
point, but this is a one-time payment, and,
Yeah.
one-time payments are
I
generally
know.
more for infrastructure and
But that
things
would
of
have
that nature, but
pushed
not
us over
operating.
that one-time bit, that we needed. That would have helped, and I just, when it comes to what's good for the overall city, when it comes to only 31 people that would benefit overall, I just feel like that's a little bit harsher. But I really don't believe that Athens doesn't have a low-income program if they're the only utility or only service. Like we just heard from Edison, we know gas company does, telephone does, even cable does. Sorry.
No, I think that's right, but I don't think we included anything like that in our fee study, so that makes me think that it's not. But you're right, that's not conclusive. I would say that in terms of the impact, it doesn't be limited to 31 people. I think the point that the city manager was making is that the program under the water department has that threshold set, and that only covers 31 people. But I think part of the feedback that the staff is requesting is that should they look at a slightly higher income level so that it would, it was so that.
Very low.
Yeah, exactly.
The 31 is, that's the.
21 too, sorry.
It's the extremely low income is the 21?
No, that's very low.
Very low.
Yeah.
Very low is 21.
I mean, honestly, I recall when we had the hearing for the fee, and we had someone very impassioned talk about the limitations on their income, and that everything is more expensive, and that this, I think, for her felt like the straw that you know, that sort of broke her back. And so I just feel like there probably are others in the community who are feeling similar constraints on their budget, the fixed income seniors especially, or other fixed income folks. And you're right, it's possible that Athens has their own program, and this could be used to, I guess, further reduce it. And I just sort of think of all the other things that people are paying more for, that there are no relief programs. And so that and I also think, just to throw that out there, I don't think we have to use the entirety of the $200,000. And I also think that I would prefer it go to something that could be sustained a little bit over time. I think a one-time credit is not going to be useful for folks who actually need some relief. So that's my opinion.
So I'll echo a number of the things that you and others have said. I think that the one time across the board, I don't see a benefit on that. I think that having it as something that is an ask versus a give is good. So, if someone needs it, we can determine what that level is. I think, going up to the low income level is I think that makes sense. And, all someone has to do is ask for it, and we'd be happy to give it. That gives us kind of the time. It allows us to use that money to the people who really need it the most, and allows it to last longer. And yeah, we don't have to use all of it for this purpose. As it is, it's in unrestricted funds. We've got a lot of things that we're balancing. I think we need to have a good communication program so that we're not leaving anybody out. So we make sure that if people who really need it, we make it easy for them to do. But if someone doesn't need it, then that money, we have to make those choices every day, and that's the hard thing that we do up here is look at how do we make the best use of our tax base and the revenue that we've got. And so to me, I think that I want something for our lowest income or low income residents, and I want it to be something that we hopefully we can sustain people for a longer time period.
Thank you. Councilmember Grimes?
I agree with that. If you have all the money in the world, we should be doing a lot more for our low-income residents on a lot of things. But we're telling everybody we're going to be in deficit next year, and we're telling everybody we want a $460, $480 tax to pay for that deficit. We're going to give away $200,000 in the process. Makes no sense. I think we lose fiscal credibility when we do something like that. We should be pinching every penny this year, showing the taxpayers, look, we really don't have the money, as we all said in our last meeting. And, would it be nice to get a little help with a bill? Sure. That's one time, and then that's it. And what's the value of the credibility of our city government and its fiscal posture? That's, I think, has a far greater long-term value. But if you wanted to pick up, like the last 20 or 30, the people at the very bottom, you want to give them some kind of relief with some of this money, I think that's defensible. But I wouldn't use more than maybe 170. I'd use maybe 175,000. Keep it in the budget. That way you can say, well, we spent 25,000. We've helped the very, very neediest people who we could, given our fiscal constraints. That's my take.
And Jose, a quick question. So I did some quick research regarding that, and Athens does for other cities. Like, it's specific to the cities in your contract whether they do a low income. So West Covina has a 25% reduction in waste collection fees for just as doesn't say very low, it says low income, and I don't know what those requirements are. So could you ask them if that could be part of ours as well? Because I do believe we should have some relief.
Generally, those are subsidized by the full paying customers. I mean, they're not going to they're not going to say, oh, we're going to give away 25%. So our regular customers have to pay more in order to have subsidies for generally. I'm not saying that's how it's designed.
And I think that that's something that we definitely should consider for the next contract negotiations. And I agree with Councilmember Garcia that we didn't think about that when the negotiations were there, and that's part of the
Could
negotiations.
you ask if that's part of just our contract? Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we should
Just in
confirm
case.
that.
I
Yeah.
mean, on that front, I'd rather get relief from them across the board for the tipping fee and have them be flexible on that, because that will actually benefit everybody across the board, even if it's not a huge amount, and it'll be, you know, built in sort of over time. I just want to say, I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from, Councilmember Goss, in terms of what we're saying on one hand about our budget and our deficit. I guess I would say I don't view it as much of as a credibility loss, because this is a one-time amount that is not going to ever recur again, and so we can never balance our budget, you know, based on this amount. And, you know, to me, the point that you make, that we are asking residents to, you know, vote in a sustainable funding source in addition to what we have already, to me, that actually maybe makes it more important for some of our low-income folks to have some relief somewhere, right? Because they're going to end up paying their portion of that too, and it's not going to, you know, it's not going to be variable based on income. So I guess I would argue that, you know, the story I would say is that we had this one-time money. It's specific to Athens, and, you know, to the extent that that caused fiscal harm to some of our lowest-income residents, that we tried to set aside part of the money that we were getting from Athens to help them with that relief, understanding that this money was never going to, you know, bridge any gap that we have in our budget on an ongoing basis.
Madam Mayor, how much of the 200,000 were you at?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be part of the guidance, right? Is if we, yeah, I mean, if we went back and looked at who, you know, if we were to provide it to the same number that we're providing on the water side, or if we went up one level, like what would that number look like? What do we think? And then how much do we think that would cost? I think that would be the guidance.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see the numbers before setting
Oh,
an
yeah, for sure.
arbitrary. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, and I don't think the full 200,000 for sure. So I just would like to have some context for what this number that we set, if that's where we go.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think helping people, given the financial conditions right now, is totally defensible. I just have to remember, there's a big campaign of.
No, I understand.
We have to be, you know,
And there are some
be
big
very
expenses that we've had to accommodate for in the last year, and looks like maybe this year.
Okay, anything else? Any other feedback?
I agree. Like, we've balanced our budget. We presented a balanced budget to the residents this year. And this is a one-time amount. But the story, I think it's the story, and I think that's what you're getting to, Councilmember Goss. It's like, well, it's hard for all the residents to understand that one-time fees or reserves or buying one asset that actually holds value or actually increases in value is different than ongoing operations and ongoing revenue into our streams. This is not a revenue, ongoing revenue, it's a one-time thing. So the story gets very convoluted and people don't understand it sometimes. So to your point, I understand what you're trying to say here, but.
Well, this is good. We've hashed it out. We're on tape. We can cite the tape. I think we're being operating in good faith, keeping in mind the fiscal constraints, and trying to help people who probably need some help.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, thank you. Do you have the feedback that you need?
Madam Mayor, so I just need a little bit more direction. If we model it, so in the water system, our most common account is a 5/8 and 3/4. The subsidy there is about $16 to be in line, so that we can have something to calculate, so that we can bring that back to council and say, this is the impact per year, and you can decide on if you want to do it for how many years. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, I think the idea is that I think we're all in agreement that we don't want to dedicate the full 200,000, but we don't want to just pick an arbitrary number that doesn't have any relationship to what the nature of the relief. And so, yeah, so the idea being that if we were to include 21, or maybe it's a little bit higher, maybe we go to the next income level, maybe that adds 20 more people, 30 more people, whatever it might be, and then kind of what we would think would be somewhat meaningful that we could sustain over, I don't think it's a one-time, I don't think people are interested in a one-time, but something sustainable over a period of time.
I'm also comfortable with like a percentage, like if it is a certain, we saw Councilmember Lowe brought up that it's a 25% on it. If our water is based on a percent, we can use that. I defer to staff on kind of how they think it makes the most sense, how it would make sense to structure it, right? Is it a flat amount, is it a percent amount, is it, the accounts, the charges that are out there, I'll let use your expertise to make that decision.
And then I guess the
advise
other
us.
question too is, what's the population? Is it single-family residents? Is it all residents? I don't think we're talking about commercial accounts, so I think residential, and then I guess the question is,
It'd be hard to do multifamily because the landlord pays
Yeah,
the Athens
that's
bill,
true.
so that's kind of hard to do, so it'd be single-family residents.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's another point, and I don't know if we're all in agreement, but I would want it to function in a way not to be like a rebate check or money given to a resident. I'd rather us provide a subsidy back to Athens to then reduce that individual's bill, rather than handing the check over. I think it's more impactful that way.
I think so, yeah, that's what I was thinking too, like a bill reduction, so more than a rebate, like you said.
And I would agree with the low income level, I mean, depending on what the numbers are, but I do think that that's increasing as time goes on right now, especially with people and the cost of living increasing versus your income not increasing. And so, like if a family of four is $100,000 a year, I mean, that's pretty much what also like schools like Stanford have now said, if you have a family of four and you make under this amount, we'll subsidize your tuition. So I think it's kind of going in the same path of helping those in need, and I think that $100,000 isn't a lot with a family of four. I think I would vote on the low income, not very low income.
Okay, anything else?
I gotta ask the question, I think. Historically, and I wasn't on the committee, what was the reason for the carrot of the $200,000? Was that to extend the contract another 2 years, or was it just?
I think it was just to cover, like, we got a one-time payment, I think, from them before, and we used it for certain things, and so it was just another sort of benefit. I don't think, there wasn't tied to a specific, it was, there was a package, deal in terms of them providing, certain support to our events, and I mean, there's just a bunch of sort of benefits that went into the package as well, and then to offset the costs.
Oh, wait, that just reminded me then. Was that the 200,000, is that included in that's why they don't give donations anymore to certain groups, because that's the 200,000 they gifted to the city? Okay.
I don't know if that's what the reason is for not donating to
events?
Groups. Nonprofits.
Okay.
There ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
All right, anything else?
Senior.
All right, moving on then. The resolutions relating to our initiative, doesn't have a snappy title, so, Madam City Clerk.
2443, isn't that snappy?
Yes, resolutions 24-43 and 44, all you need to know.
Thank you. So just by way of background, at the last council meeting, staff presented a report outlining the steps and efforts made by proponents of a citizens petition. The City Council accepted the qualified petition and approved the initiative measure for the upcoming November 5th regular election. Today, the City Council is being asked to approve Resolution 2443, setting priorities for filing written arguments regarding the ballot measure, and also Resolution 24-44, providing for the filing of rebuttal arguments. The City Council, when they adopted and approved the petition at the last council meeting, also directed the city attorney to prepare an impartial analysis, and that impartial analysis is attached to the city council's report. The resolution 2443 does two things in effect. It presents to the city council the question that will be on the ballot and is seeking council's approval of the question that will go to the voters in November. And the second part is setting priorities for the written arguments. We do this in preparation and anticipation and potentially the city council writing an argument by adopting Resolution 2443, it does not obligate the city council to write an argument, but it does allow you, should the opportunity present itself. The same thing applies to Resolution 24-44. It also allows the city council to provide rebuttal arguments if the opportunity presents itself, but since it is a citizens initiative, the city council is not required to provide rebuttal arguments. That may be done by the proponents of the initiative. The resolution simply provides for an opportunity for the council to file rebuttal arguments if the opportunity presents itself.
So if there's no rebuttal, we don't write a response to the rebuttal. There is like a, you have to have something to rebut to be able to write the
It has to be
rebuttal.
It's more that if there isn't an argument against, there's
Right.
no need for a rebuttal.
Right, I guess that's what I'm trying to ask, thank you.
So the proponents, if the proponents submit their arguments and another party submits a rebuttal or an argument against the proponents, then the rebuttals come next, and so the proponents could then decide whether they want to file a rebuttal or an argument, but if they don't, then the city council may do it.
Is it only one, or is there ever two? Does the city council have one and then say the proponents had one?
It would only be one.
Okay.
And if, so what is the process for submitting
Argument?
an argument for? So do you accept it, do you have to give it first to the proponents? Do we have to make the selection? If you get two in, who makes the decision on that?
The election official, the city clerk, would make the determination. In this event, considering it is a initiative that is presented by the proponents, they would be given more weight in preparation for the argument and the rebuttal.
Okay, so you could receive multiple arguments for it, and then you're the one that makes the decision.
That is correct.
Is that the same for a argument against?
That is also correct, yes.
Oh, good point.
And there are time frames for all of this, right?
There are timeframes. There are a lot of timeframes connected to the election, and some of those have already begun, and everything gets published in the newspaper and advertised. But the timeframes for this hasn't come up yet, and the city clerk's office will announce when those timeframes come up.
So the purpose of these resolutions is to allow the city council the flexibility to be the authors of one or more of these items that would be published in the ballot in case we feel the need to do so, depending on how the proponents seek to address these issues.
That is correct.
So, but then there isn't 2443 the actual question? So I'm a little confused about, there's the question and then there is the...
It's almost like two parts.
Right.
Yes. So that is the resolution 2443 is the resolution that it has two purposes. Number one is the question that's being proposed to the voters in the ballot in the November election, and this question was prepared after last council's meeting by city staff and the city attorney, and so this is being presented to the city council tonight for approval to go into the ballot. And then the second purpose of resolution 2443 is to identify the positions where the city council will rest on the matter, and then to select who is authorized to write the arguments. So that is the purpose for 2443.
So if I just recap in my mind, there's three things, right? The language that's going to appear in the ballot.
Yes.
The section 2 is who's in support, if we're all in support of it. And then 3, who writes the case for the measure.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And what are our parameters? Or, I mean, I assume that there are limitations and fairly strict rules about how questions are stated. So what's what are the parameters under which we can discuss the wording / nature of the question presented?
So, in the past, the way the city council has handled this is that they, if they choose to prepare arguments, they typically will appoint 2 members, less than a quorum, from the city council to author the arguments. And then those, before they're submitted to the county, our registrar's office, are signed by all 5 members.
Understood. I guess my question is, if we were to debate the way that the question for the measure is going to be presented on the ballot, the section 1 of Resolution 24-43, I'm sure there are parameters around what we can and can't do with respect to that wording and that presentation.
There are, and there may be some changes that could be made to the question depending on what is presented. The question that is currently on the resolution meets the minimum requirements of the law, but we can work through it and see if there are any changes that can be made.
So the process at this point is primarily ministerial. Because elections are so political, the city council is kind of insulated from making a lot of these decisions. So with respect to the question, unless there's something that's factually incorrect, there wouldn't be any rewording done by the city council. Same thing with the impartial analysis. The city clerk is responsible for choosing who gets to make the argument, because it insulates the city council from that decision. In the same way, the city attorney is charged with drafting the impartial analysis and staff is charged with drafting the question. And to answer your question directly, Mayor, there is a very specific requirement in the elections code with respect to parcel taxes about how these have to be drafted.
That's what I suspected.
Yeah.
I just want to understand the parameters of our discussion for tonight.
So I have 2 questions about the question. That's okay. The first one is, it's my recollection that the citizen brought initiative had I guess a sunset clause, not a sunset, but a clause that it was a certain amount of years.
Oh,
No, a certain amount of years.
It was both.
Okay, right.
And here it says repeal until repealed by the voters. Wouldn't it also be ending at a certain date?
Yeah.
Should that be included in the question?
It should be, and the way I read it is that it doesn't have a sunset clause. And we need to revisit that if that's the case.
I think you need.
It does have a sunset clause, that's what it's intended by the writing.
10 years, or what was it?
7.
7, yeah. And then
At
also.
7 years it sunsets.
And it was my other question was, it was mentioned while I was asking the question, is does the CPI escalator need to be included in the question as well?
It's included in the impartial analysis, but not in the question.
Doesn't
It doesn't, and it doesn't need to be, no.
Okay.
But the sunset clause is important, so, if you give me a moment, let me
Sure.
look that up.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe if there are no other questions, then, I mean, we can also ask questions as part of
I thought they
discussion.
took the sunset clause out. They left it in?
If there are no other questions.
I do have, I just want to clarify the rebuttal or not the rebuttal, but the argument in favor for, let's say we as a body want to support, and I'm kind of going back 2 years from now, or a year ago, 2 years ago. Do we have a purview to say we can designate let's say if we do support, the council to write an argument for, but we reserve the right for another group to write one, and we can then defer to that other argument if we so choose, if that makes sense?
Well, I don't think we pick it, so I don't think we as a body would defer. I think what I heard City Clerk Aguilar say is that she will probably give deference to the proponents on an argument, and then if we were to prepare a separate one, I guess unless ours was just so much more fabulous.
You jogged my memory, because we went through this process 2 years ago.
Yes.
And I
We've gone through this process 6 times in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
We have.
Thank you. No, that clarifies that for me.
So, I mean, if I just bottom line it, I would think that we would, well, that's more discussion, never mind. Any other questions? No, otherwise I'll open up public comment while City Attorney looks up the.
So, I'm still trying to understand this section 2 in front of us. So, are we are we deciding if we want to be for the measure and then who writes the measure? Or is it, we saying we're for the measure and we're writing the measure, or writing that?
It's an and, not a then. So this resolution will memorialize the, positions that each council member is taking, whether in favor or against. In addition to that, then it's also decided which ones, on the council will prepare or will be able to prepare a argument, and that could depend on how the, council is either in favor or against.
Right, if we're all against, then it,
Yeah.
you can't write a favor, yeah. And then it still leaves it open if the proponents wanna write the item.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so I'll open up for public comment.
We have no speaker cards submitted nor emails.
That's what I figured.
It's at the bottom of 3.38.090, right below the price.
Can you email me? I'm having trouble finding the document.
I also, yeah, no problem.
All right, so let's open discussion. I think we could start with the section 2 of resolution 24-43, indicating our position, our respective positions on the measure. I think that's probably the easiest place to start. I wasn't here last week, so I think, I'm probably the mystery. I would have voted yes, and so I will start by saying you can list me as in favor of the measure. Anybody else wanna?
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
Yeah, we all said that last time. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh,
that's
she's
one-
taking
that's-
notes,
Yeah, 'cause
all right.
that's one thing we have to decide on.
That's one thing we have to put into the
That's one thing we
resolution.
have to
Alright.
think about.
And then in terms of delegation of the 5 of us that are now publicly declared in favor, I think it's a good idea to have a less than quorum, subcommittee to do that. I think for me, the choice would be Councilmember Lowe and, yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem, yeah, I'm sorry, your title eluded me. But, I'm open to suggestions.
I like that idea, it's good.
I'm willing.
Last
Are
time
you
I
guys
did
willing to?
Last time I wrote one, we got sued, so. I'm not gonna do it.
So that's goal number 1 of our subcommittee.
Goal number 1, okay.
Set a high bar.
Yeah.
And you 2 are willing to serve, I assume?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Mayor, may I request a 5 to 10 minute recess so that we can find the document?
yeah, no, I mean.
I just
keep-
emailed the
keep-
document,
Keep working, and then I think, is there anything else, City Clerk, that is there anything on resolution 24-44 that we need to discuss?
It's a similar concept, it's just who
Who will write the
rebuttal.
arguments?
I
for
would
or against
suggest that the same committee be charged with both sets of writing.
Sure,
Yep. second
Okay.
that.
Okay.
for sure.
So, yeah, we can take a 5-minute recess, or however long you need, City Attorney, and then we'll come back and talk about the question. Okay, so we are in,
Yeah, I didn't see the hard copy.
we are in recess until at least 8:10.
You're welcome.
All right, we're gonna convene for our large remaining audience.
Yeah.
No, you're fine. Okay, so I think, would you wanna go ahead and address the question?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mayor. So, in resolution number 2443, the question should be amended, and the last line should read, "and imposed until July 1, 2032, comma, be adopted, question mark." So the line repealed by the voters should be struck and should be replaced with July 1, 2032. And the amendment only needs to be made in the question because the impartial analysis reflects the correct language.
I'm sorry, repeat the date again?
July 1st, July 1, 2032. Which is 7 years from the effective date of the ordinance, and the ordinance takes effect July 1st, 2025.
Okay.
I mean, I don't love the way it's worded, but I don't think I have I have a say in it, so I don't think it matters. I guess the one thing I would say is the subject of the verbs in the last paragraph, because it's split by the, you know, the call out of the rates, or the, you know, the various levels of the rate, is not clear. So I don't know if we want to repeat the measure, just so it's clear, because, like, you know, you get to providing annual audits, it's like, well, who's providing annual audit? It's just, that's my only concern, is that you sort of get to that point and you're not sure what it's referring back to, and you have to go back to the beginning to get to the measure. So I would just suggest if we could say something like, which measure, you know, would raise, would provide, you know, like, that would be my only thing. I just think it'd be clearer, but I understand that that's pretty tight parameters.
And I think I hit the 75 word limit.
Okay.
But I'm going to
I
confirm
hate it
that.
when that happens.
Would a date be one word? July 1st, 2023?
It is.
Or 20,
Date
2032?
is one word.
Yes.
So you would go from 4 to 1 there. Anyway, I don't want to be ticky-tack, but that was when I read it, that confused me, so that's just.
Well, and I read it, I had the same problem at the other end, right? Shall the measure, and then it lists all of the parts, and I was like, wait, what, I had a hard time following what the object was.
So the measure shall fund, or.
There's a question mark at the end, but you gotta read the whole thing to get there.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think
guess
what
you're right.
we're struggling with, at least what I was struggling with, is the 3 bullets in the middle that just, like, it breaks up the sentence, and that's what makes it hard to read, at least for me.
Can we put the rates at the bottom, or do they have to be in the middle?
They do not have to be in the middle.
I mean, could we put the question all as one and say, you know, at the rates below, and then continue, and then have the rates below? Shall the measure to fund, you know, by imposing a public safety
Formatting is.
special tax at the rates below, subject to certain exceptions, which raise approximately this, provide annual audits and citizen oversight, and be imposed until date, be adopted, and then have the rates below?
So it generally always reads as a single sentence.
Okay.
A question does. And to break up the sentence into 2 sentences, I'm not saying you couldn't do it, I'm just saying it departs from the traditional format of the way questions are worded.
I guess I wouldn't view the bullets as sentences, but that's just grammar, I guess. But I see your point.
And does that open us up to any liability?
I don't think it'd open us I don't think it would open us up to liability. I think what might happen is the county elections official might push back and say, this needs to be reworded, but I've never seen it happen. So I know that everything in here comports with the requirements under the elections code in terms of content. So I don't know that the formatting would matter much, and I think it's totally fine to reformat it if you feel like it becomes clearer, to submit it to the county elections official if you want, and to see what feedback you receive.
Is this formatting just arbitrary, or is this how it will look actually as well?
This is the format and how it'll appear on the ballot.
Because I also don't like bullets that have
Big spaces.
hanging
Yeah.
indentations. If you're gonna have a bullet, the entire bullet should be on the same indentation, but I don't think we have any control over that, right? That's just how they print it. Like, for example, in the first bullet, I'd like the per parcel per year to be on the same
Under the S.
indentation under single family.
And they generally just copy and paste whatever the city clerks send to them, and
But that's like the least of my concerns, so, I mean, I'm not gonna get it, I mean.
I don't wanna speak for the county clerk and say definitively that will happen, but generally speaking, they just copy and paste what we email to them right into the template for the voter guide.
And it's like the same size font, I mean, because I mean, we all know like the way formatting works, like if you cut and paste into something else, sometimes it keeps the formatting and sometimes it doesn't.
Yep.
I think at the end of the day, I would hope our voting public, when they get into the polling place or they write, they do their mail-in ballot, that they would know what this is about.
Oh, I think they're gonna know what it's about, for the most part, people who know, they're gonna know, but I mean, people who read it for the first time, there are going to be people that read it for the first time when they
Yep.
open their ballot, 100%. So, that's just, those are the people that I'm thinking about. We have lots of people who are super informed and they're gonna know, they don't have to read it, they're just gonna mark their vote one way or the other, but people who open their ballot, like, what's this all about? That's who I'm
And the
thinking of.
impartial analysis is in the voter guide, right?
Correct.
This would be on the ballot, you know.
But you know, there's people that just show up and don't look at their, they just look at the,
And it is a general election,
yep.
presidential general election. I see your point.
Look, I mean, I
Mayor, if you'd like, you could continue the item. I can come back with a reformatted question.
do we have time for that?
We do, this is due at the beginning of August, so we have one more regular meeting where we could make that decision.
Do you want to split this out and make it into its own separate resolution so we can actually approve the stuff we've already approved tonight? Or do you want to
That's
just
a good idea.
reconsider it altogether?
It's fine to leave it the way it is, but if that's the direction we wanna give, we can split it up as well.
So is it now on the public record that the five of us support this even without a resolution being passed?
It's in the public record. It's part of the minutes.
I mean, I guess if we came back next week and someone decided that officially they wanted to change their, I mean, I guess they could because we haven't officially adopted it. I don't feel like we need to lock anybody in though.
No, my question being, let's say there's an opportunity for one of us to speak about something, not that there will be.
You want it to be on record that,
Oh, well, I mean, you
Well, we
guys
were on the
voted about
record.
it last week.
Well, we voted to put on the ballot.
Oh, that's true.
we didn't vote to
I just wanna
support
make
it as
sure
a
we're-
council.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are you gonna go wobbly on this, or?
No.
No, it sounds like he wants to go and like talk to the Kiwanis and he wants to like make sure that it's like.
No, but
Yeah,
once that's
No, I think
asserted,
that's the
then,
point. It's the other way.
once that's asserted, and once you vote yes, that we've approved this resolution, that we're all in, then therefore I can talk to him about it, right?
No, that's the other thing, right? I don't know. Brown Act issues, right?
I think we're getting
'Cause
into
it's-
another item of
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Well, that kind of decides whether we approve.
Well, let's
separate it out or
let's
not,
separate it
right?
out then. Let's go, we've
agree.
already determined everything but the question itself, so if you
Yeah,
don't, if you don't mind, let's go ahead and pass resolution 2443 as amended to remove section 1.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then I would entertain a motion to approve 2444.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
and, the direction is for staff to bring back a new resolution with the question has been reformatted.
Right.
the direction the council will provide.
And that's just for 43. 44 should be all done and in the books.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
And, Mr. City Manager, do you have, or City Attorney rather, do you have the direction you need, or do you want further direction?
If the council has preferences regarding formatting, it would be helpful to hear what some of those preferences are. Ultimately, the decision on how to draft it is going to be mine, but I'd like to know what some of these preferences are.
Yeah, the hanging indent gets me, with the bullet point.
Yeah.
But I would also endeavor, even if we have to make it into, information after a single sentence, I would like to move the bullets to the bottom so that people can just read the sentence contiguously.
And you were saying replace the word following with below.
Below or something,
At the rates.
I mean,
below.
it still follows, so you could still use following, it's just.
Raising approximately.
Yeah, and I think the verb tense changes, just grammatically, I think you would then change, raising to, would raise or raises or something like that, just so that it reads grammatically correctly, but not change the meaning. Any other suggestions or preferences? I like Garamond better than Times New Roman.
Oh, Calibri.
Glad there's no serifs here.
It's not even late, and we've devolved.
We haven't gotten into any Dr. Seuss yet.
Yeah, that's true. No humps and bumps and jumps tonight. All right, does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, that was our last agenda item. Does anyone have requests for future agenda items?
Not agenda items, but could we, with the bear situation, add some more points of what to do if the bear enters your home in your home? Because it seems like it's happening pretty frequently now with people being locked in their bedrooms.
If I can add to that, just an update on statistics. I think
Yeah.
just keeping to hear it and keeping it in front of us, especially because that will be, our next meeting will be our last meeting until September.
I also think any meeting where we have an update on statistics should have, maybe not the full litany to full degree, but I also think every time we have the opportunity to remind what we've done, remind the public what we have done. It's frustrating sometimes to hear now you need to take action. I mean, I'm not characterizing tonight's comment, but just I've heard it, online and in person, and what is the city ever gonna do about this? And so I think, to continue just to hammer how much we have
And what we-
done and what the parameters of our jurisdiction are on this, we do not, whether or not I wanna go and shoot a bear, I don't have the the authority to do so. So I think it would be good, every opportunity we talk about it, to at least do some version of what's been done to date and what our role in this can
Yes.
be, because we cannot relocate a bear, we cannot euthanize a bear, we cannot make those decisions.
Mayor and council, right now we have tentatively scheduled Fish and Wildlife
Next meeting.
for the July 23rd meeting before we go on break to give an update on what Fish and Wildlife is going to be providing our community moving forward without the wildlife biologist, what resources they have. And at that time, we could give an update on statistics, I'll rely on Fish and Wildlife to inform the residents on hazing techniques, but we can also update the community on what we've done.
And what to do in the future, because we have the hazing and we say call 911, but it seems that we are having so many break-ins, even when people are home, that I think it's good to tell people, what do you do? Call 911 right away, lock yourself in a somewhere, try to get out if safe, those kinds of things, because that's not part of what we've been saying yet.
Yeah, most of our reaction has been under the assumption that the bear is not inside the home.
Yes, exactly, that's my point. And I think it's also kind of hard with social media that we don't give the facts of things, so we just all hear rumors, like, oh, there was a bear hit, we've heard. There's people have, the event today, I've heard about this. So is the bear break-ins part and the statistics part of the police blotter?
I can follow up, I'm not sure what they.
Great suggestion.
That might be a good idea.
Boy, oh boy, great
Add
idea.
it to the police
We're
blotter,
having a conversation.
just so we have the facts.
Captain Amos is here, he can answer.
I don't know that we.
Madre, PD responded.
Yeah, we
Agenda.
can, yeah, we can't, is this a yes or no if it's on the police
Yeah.
blotter?
It is currently not on the police blotter, no.
Oh, sweet, okay.
Do you
All
think
right.
it'd be wise to add that?
We can't
We
talk about
can't,
this.
yeah,
Oh,
We'll talk about it at the next meeting.
yeah.
okay.
Great idea.
Or if you overheard that and maybe you've decided that might be a good idea to do it.
Councilman Lowe will be leading our next Brown Act training. All right.
I don't know if anyone knows that.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
I don't know if anyone's gonna oppose that one,
Adjourned.
though. You're trying to.